The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, known as North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Hello and welcome to Our Hamilton, Our Vote, the 2022 municipal election debates presented live by Cable 14 in partnership with the Hamilton Spectator. I'm Mike Fortune and I will be your moderator yet again. For this debate, we have all of the candidates for councillor in Ward 11. With us in studio tonight are Nick Lowers, Terry Moffat, Nick Pellegrino, and Mark Taddison. Thank you each for being here. We do appreciate it, and we know you have busy schedules. As usual, our format includes 2 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves. Then, our local media panel will be posing questions. Viewers at home, if you are watching our broadcast live, hey, please tweet us at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com. We'll try our best to get to your question. And of course, you can share your questions with any of these candidates. And finally, we will wrap up the hour with an open forum for the candidates to question and respond to each other. All the candidates were provided copies of the debate format well in advance and are aware of how the next hour will be unfolding. Of course, I will be doing my best to keep us on track with what is expected for each section. Now, let's get on with the show. We will get started with our 2-minute introductory statements. If needed, you will get a 10-second warning before I call time. Up first, Nick Lowers.
Good evening. My name is Nick Lowers. I live in Mount Hope with my wife and young children, and we have extended family members in Binbrook. I'm also a small business owner, meeting a payroll, managing an office, and serving a growing clientele as a registered mental health professional. It is with great optimism that I have put my name forward to serve you and serve our community. This election is about change and affordability. I'm sure as you're watching, you can think of many things that need to change in Mount Hope and Binbrook to enhance our quality of life. For those of us who live in Mount Hope and Binbrook, we know why we chose to live here. Glanbrook offers us a great quality of life. We love our small community feel in a city. We love to drive down a highway and see a farmer's field. In Glanbrook, we have something special, community. Yet, while life is good, we pay our fair share of taxes, but do not receive our fair share of services. You've told me what you want your next councillor to do. Make Upper James accident-free, enforce speed limits in our residential communities, finish the Glanbrook Recreation Centre, and obtain more police services, and continue to support the farmers who feed us. But most of all, you've said that property taxes are too high. It's true. Hamilton is the third most unaffordable city to live in North America. If the city has its way, we will face a property tax increase totaling 14% over the next 3 years. On average, that's an extra $800 per household. This will not happen with me as councillor. We need to keep property taxes low so Glanbrook families and businesses can continue to prosper. As your councillor, I will fight for you. I will be there for you and in your corner. Glanbrook needs an energetic, active city councillor to take us forward. On October 24th, I'm asking you to vote for me, Nick Lowers. Thank you.
Candidate Lowers, thank you very much for that. We will now move forward with candidate Terry Moffat.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to be here tonight. Proudly, I am the fourth generation raised in Hamilton. I spent much of my time growing up, attending high school, bought my first house, and started my family in Ward 11. I am proud to say my 4 children are now fifth generations raised in Hamilton. Over the years, my children and I have lived in different areas of Hamilton, giving me a lot of perspective on the city as a whole. I am a parent of a child that had special needs growing up, and I was a full-time caregiver to both my ailing parents for several years. I have seen firsthand the gaps in the services, resources, and the funding in the school, healthcare systems, and the community as well. I spent many years volunteering, participating in fundraising, as well as searching out and accessing resources in the community. It was a challenge learning to be a good advocate for my family and for other families of children with special needs, as well as families and caregivers of the elderly. I have had a lengthy career in banking, accounting, customer service, as well as owning my own environmental company. This experience has made me a good listener. I have been listening, and I care about what Ward 11 residents have to say. I feel that all people need to be heard, and I am going to bring this skill to my position of City Councillor. I am running for City Council because I want to provide a better quality of life for the residents of Ward 11. I think it is essential that residents have a say in what happens in their ward as a whole, and my priorities are the issues that the Ward 11 residents have brought to my attention. I am dedicated to being the voice of that community. I am not just a politician. I will bring honesty, integrity, transparency, and accountability back to City Council and restore faith in the City of Hamilton.
Candidate
Thank
Moffat,
you.
thank you very much. Up next, candidate Nick Pellegrino.
Thanks. Good evening to everyone, especially you, the viewer. I would like to begin by thanking Cable 14, our moderator, Mike Fortune, Jonathan Friedman, Bill Custers, James McMillan, and all the volunteers behind the scenes, and of course our guest journalist, John Wells from The Spectator, and Manisa Danabalan from CHCH TV. I would also like to thank my campaign manager, Greg Maychek, my volunteers, and especially my wife, Maria, who has been my rock. I am Nick Pellegrino. That's Nick Pellegrino with a P. And I have dedicated 45 years of my life to public service with HSR and volunteering in my communities. I love this city, but I love Glanbrook, Binbrook, Hannon, Elfrida, and Mount Hope, even more because this is where I live and call my home. Since amalgamation, I have seen our communities often neglected, including the only ward without a recreation center, no public transit, and a lack of dedicated space for our youth and seniors, who I respect and adore. I also respect and understand the many social issues in the City of Hamilton and will work hard for more affordable housing, increased employment opportunities, and will work to find ways to reduce our dependency on the residential tax base, but I will work the hardest for our middle-class people of Ward 11, especially the residential homeowners and farmers who pay the municipal taxes that benefit all of us. It is time that you are the priority and my sole reason for running for City Council, and that's why I'm here today, to better represent you and your interests at City Hall. Regardless of who you decide to vote for, please, please get out and vote, as it is our democratic right to do so since we all want and need change in the City of Hamilton. As my slogan goes, no promises, just results.
Candidate
Nick
Pellegrino, thank you very much.
Thank
Our
you.
time is up. And rounding out our group of 4 tonight, we're going to throw it over now to Mark Taddison. Please take it away.
Hello. Thank you, Cable 14 and Mike. Hello, my name is Mark Taddison. I'm thankful for the people of Glanbrook, for they have an opportunity to choose between several good candidates. I thank Nick and Terry. Competition makes each of us a better candidate. Despite some anxious days early on, I am so thankful that I've run for City Council. Going through this campaign, meeting old friends, making new ones, being involved in the community at a new level makes me realize even more how lucky I am to be living in Glanbrook. We all recognize that growth in our community and expansion in our city has left Glanbrook with some important issues that need to be addressed. It is my hope that you will see my energy, determination that I bring to the equation, the willingness to roll up my sleeves and put in sincere efforts to serve Glanbrook as best as I can and solve local issues. As a longtime resident, your concerns are my concerns. When I can help immediately, I will lend a hand personally. When you call, if needed, I will come to your home. When you have questions, I will find answers. When complex issues arise, I will sit at the table ready to listen and learn. I will share ideas and ask questions. I will have courageous conversations. If I need to, I will reach out to city staff. I will build relationships with people in all levels of government, in local businesses, and our community to research and find a pathway of possibility. I will work for consensus to find solutions that best work for Glanbrook. Hamilton is changing, and as our city modernizes, I want to ensure responsible decisions are made that keep us safe, prioritize our health and environment, support our local economy, and maintain our small town charm. I entered this race as a citizen with concerns that I wanted brought forward. I've achieved that goal, and now I ask for your support.
Mark, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time. We appreciate that. And to all of our candidates, thank you all very much for being here, as we alluded to earlier. We will now bring in our local media panel. With us for this debate are John Wells from the Hamilton Spectator and Manisa Donabalan from CHCH News. To our viewers who've been watching all along, thank you so much. As usual, you know the process. Each of our reporters will be choosing a candidate to answer a question, and then the other candidates can also respond. To the candidates, please make sure you indicate if you want to get involved, and I'll be keeping my eye out for you. All of your responses will be limited to 1 minute. I'll be giving a warning when time has run out. Our first question comes from the Spectator's John Wells.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here. Hi, candidates. I'll start. My first question is to the first Nick. You mentioned farmers. Do you feel the city should be doing more to support farmers in the Glanbrook area? And if so, what should be done? And then other candidates can have a crack at that question as well if they'd like.
Well, you know, as I've talked with many residents, I haven't heard much from farmers about what the city specifically can do to support farmers other than, you know, protecting farmland and ensuring that our prime agricultural farmland is protected. And as the next city councillor, I will do that. I will fight for farmers. I will make sure that the prime agricultural farmland is protected. We love our farms in Glanbrook.
Thank you for that response. Any other candidates like to get involved? Yes, candidate Moffat.
I just wanted to add that it is important, I agree with Nick, that we protect our agriculture in our rural areas. The agricultural area provides $2 million to the city of Hamilton each year, and I think it would be irresponsible of us as councillors and the city of Hamilton to jeopardize our food supply and security. It is very important that we protect our urban and agricultural lands.
Mark?
I'd like to thank you too for your answers as well. And farmers also need support down at City Hall with permitting processes. They're trying to build new agricultural buildings. They're trying to put culverts in to access their fields. Farmers need our support in that way. They also need our support to innovate and to keep up with technology so that their farms are productive. So I'll help out with that area, and I have a good relationship with the farming community, and anything that I can do, I will do to support them.
Candidate Pellegrino.
Yes. Well, we had the Benbrook Fair this past weekend, and I've spoke to many farmers, and I agree with all the opponents here that farmland definitely should be protected. I'll work as hard as I can with the farmers and see exactly what we can do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of farmland for sale right now, and it looks like the developers want it, and I won't let them have it. I mean, we'll try and work something out. I spoke about recreation centers and swimming pools, so we'll see if we can work with, if the farmland does go up for sale, we'll see if the developers will work with the councillor.
Thank you for that. Nick, final word goes to you, if you like, for this particular topic.
Yeah, I want to speak in agreement with Mr. Taddison that permits would be the one area. I have spoken with several farmers who would like to have certain types of buildings built in places, and they find that there's so much red tape at the city, it's very hard to get anything done. And so as a city councilor, we'll need to advocate strongly for them.
Thanks to each for those responses. Coming up next from CHCH, Manisa Donaballen, you are up.
Thank you. My question is for Mark. What kind of changes need to be made to transit in this ward to be more beneficial for the residents?
Thanks for the question. So we have two issues here. We have to look at our ward in different situations. So in Mount Hope, we have the airport, and the airport needs to be supported with transit. As the airport employment district grows, more businesses are going to come to that area. New developments, residential developments are there, so the town is growing. So the A line, I think, has just started in Mount Hope, and it's going to service that area. And if we need more service to make it more frequent, so that it's more convenient for people that work in those areas, that's fine. Now, on the other side of our township or our ward, is Bimbrook, and Bimbrook does not, at this point, want transit. They've opted out in a survey over about 7 years ago. So there's not a desire. Most people drive cars. They've moved to that area knowing that there's no transit, and most people don't want to see transit at this time. However, as our community changes, we'll see if that changes, and we can always survey and check that out at a later time.
Mark, thank you very much for that response. Candidate Pellegrino?
Yes. Thanks, Mike. Having been an HSR worker for 45 years, I tend to disagree with Mark. In Binbrook, I've been approached by many a person that say transit is long overdue. We have cars that are double parked on streets, and when it comes wintertime, the snowplow won't even be able to get through. So people are concerned right now that there's too many cars. We're talking about climate change. How else are we going to protect climate change if we don't get these cars off the street? By bringing transit in there, and I know people are going to say, well, it involves area rating. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to form a committee, and let's see where we go with this. There's pros and cons, like Mark said, there's pros and cons to it, but we'll form a committee, and let's see what people say, because people are saying, well, geez, the mall's all the way down there. I'm watching a movie, and I got to drive my kids to the mall. They don't want to be able to do that. They want a bus in their area, so the bus can either take them to the mall or take them somewhere where they can transfer onto another bus. And by the way, Binbrook is the only rural area without transit right now.
Candidate Nick Lowers.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to both. I'd like to speak in agreement with Mr. Taddison. There's a reason that Binbrook is the only area without transit. That is because they have stated mostly so far that, they're okay. However, what I'd like to talk about quickly is our seniors. One of the places that I've seen transit needing to improve is to our 3 seniors' residences in Mount Hope, particularly on 20 Road. There's a bus, a transportation bus that takes them to Fortino's, to grocery shop. That's great. But many of them have stated and expressed their need for either a bus or to reinstate Dial a Cab. Dial a Cab was a program that was had there that they utilized. It was $1 to and from a bus, and it worked quite well. So COVID took that out of the scene, unfortunately, but I'd like to reinstate that.
Candidate Pellegrino, you'd like to come back?
Yes. I'd like to talk about what Nick just spoke about. We definitely need transit in Binbrook. Like I said, this weekend we had the Binbrook Fair, and there were shuttle buses, especially for seniors. So if we're all thinking that transit isn't needed in Binbrook, I think you better think again, because seniors right now want transit. Some parents, they want transit. So like I said, I'd form a committee, if elected, and we'd sit down with the residents of Binbrook and see where it goes.
Candidate Moffat?
I just wanted to say that I am a great believer in listening and collaborating with the community members, especially when it comes to any changes that are being considered that would increase their property taxes. I know that seniors are sometimes, the ones that don't have transit available to them, but I have spoken to a member of the Glanbrook Community Center who explained to me all the available services. There's services that take them to and from appointments, deliver groceries, medication, and pretty much provide anything they need. Meals on Wheels. There's lots of community services out there to support the seniors without having to introduce transit and increase the taxes.
Candidate Lowers.
Yeah, I mean, I want to speak to what Mr. Pellegrino said and the other comments that have been made around here. I think, what people need to understand is that if we do bring transit to places like Binbrook, that it will be reflected in property taxes. However, I will go with what residents want. If they want that, I will go with them. If they don't want that, I will support that too.
Candidate Lowers, thank you. We will continue on. Final word to you, Mark, if you wish.
I think that we can all see that we're all in agreement that further study is needed in this, and that if there's a pilot project, we could bring that up. It doesn't have to be a majority of people. It needs a significant amount of people that will use it on a regular basis, so it's cost effective. There are services. As Terry said, there's DARTS programs, there's TransCab. Some of those services are lacking, and we need to support them and fund them better so that we can serve our seniors better. There's also Glanbrook Home Support Services, and they will also support seniors as well. And I've just spent a few days talking with some of the seniors and supporting them to get a hold of transportation. So as you say, Nick, it is a need, and we need to recognize every member of our community when we're dealing with this situation.
Mark, thank you for that. Viewers, you have been sending us questions in. We are trying to get to as many of them as we can. Thank you for doing so. Those that have been sending us questions has been either been through Twitter at Cable14 or emailing election@cable14.com. This person says, I believe developers are funding candidates who will work to overturn the firm urban boundary decision if they are elected. Do you support a firm urban boundary, and will you defend Hamilton's decision not to expand if the province tries to overturn it? We will start with candidate Pellegrino.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I definitely don't want to see developers come in and have 6, 8, 10-story buildings. But I'm not against outward growth. We need homes. Everybody knows we need housing. So I will support the urban boundary not really being able to grow, okay, if that's the word I want to use, but also without growth, where do we go? That's all I want to say on that.
Candidate Moffat.
I just wanted to add that the people in Ward 11 have spoken on this issue, and we're very clear about not expanding the urban boundary. There is plenty of land that can be developed within the boundary, and we need to research this option before discussing the expansion of the urban boundary. This is where the city's focus should be on, as well as negotiating with developers to increase the amount of living units, new businesses, and amenities that could be available in our community, and providing land that already exists within the urban boundary for this purpose.
Candidate Pellegrino.
Yes, I'd like to come back to this. So we have a gentleman who's been a resident of Binbrook for the longest time. His livelihood depends on building homes. What do I say to a gentleman like that, if elected? I'm sorry, you can't build homes anymore? There's pros and cons to this. We need homes. This gentleman depends on building homes. And now I have to say, no, you can't, because I want to take care of the urban boundary. Then again, where do I go with this?
Candidate Taddison.
So, Nick, there's lots of land that's available inside the urban boundary right now that's ready for that's shovel ready for residential development. What we need to do is look at other homes and infill, like Terry said. We need to concentrate our present development along the light rail transit and other major transit so that we do the infill and we have the intensification and build homes there before we expand outward. Farmers aren't necessarily against expansion of the boundary. Farmers want it to be reasonable. The city originally had 3,000 acres ready to go from farmland into being slated for development. And, with intensification and new product and the novel solutions that our previous council came up with, they're looking at maybe do they need 3,000 acres right now? Can we meet our needs with, say, 1,000 acres? So we can find compromise somewhere along the line.
Mark, thanks for that response. Candidate Lowers, would you like to get in before we
If
go
I
to
could just
Nick?
give my perspective on the urban boundary too. I've stated in numerous articles in the paper that had I been on council last year, I would have voted with council against expanding the urban boundary. However, I do understand that Hamilton does have a housing shortage, and I do think there are pockets of land where it makes sense to develop responsibly while protecting our farmland.
Final word to candidate Pellegrino.
Okay. So regarding urban boundary, if elected, I plan to grow our business tax base through economic development and making our city an attractive place to expand one's business. And if the province expands the urban boundary, which I don't support, I will ensure limited, responsible growth that makes good sense for the majority of the residents. We need to act in a collaborative, responsible way that benefits Ward 11.
Thank you very much for that response. And I see a number of you are taking notes. If you like to revisit these questions during the open forum, of course, you are welcome to. We will move on now to our media panel, once again, from The Spectator, John Wells.
Thanks, Mike. For any of the candidates who are aware of this issue, The Spectator has reported in the past about how toxic foam from an old firefighter training pad at the Hamilton Airport is still leaching into the Welland River a decade after the problem was first discovered. The city blames the federal government for allowing this to have happened years ago. What, if anything, should the city be doing to stop the leaching or to clean it up from this point going forward?
And who are you directing that question to?
Anybody who's aware of the issue and would like to talk about it.
We need you to pick someone, please.
Nick.
Well, all I can say about that is, I think that with respect to the environment, we all care about the environment. I have 3 children, and I do care about each and every environmental disaster that's happened in Hamilton. With that said, I'm going to leave that up to those who are actually environmental experts. I know that there is a department in the city of Hamilton that does environmental assessment or impact assessments. The province does environmental impact assessments. And I will have to look into this issue further when elected.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to respond? Candidate Pellegrino?
I'll respond. I mean, I'm with Nick. I mean, you have to let the specialists, I call them, look after things like that. It was the same as we had with the Shadoke Creek. It went on for 4 years. I mean, they didn't have the specialists looking after it. If they would have, it wouldn't have went on for 4 years. So that's what I would do. I would go in-house, speak to the department that's in charge of that. Let's take a look at it and see what we can do with something like that.
Thank you. If you wish, you can have final word. Oh, I just saw Mark's hand. My apologies.
I'm aware of the situation, and I realize that some of the regulations that are put in place are there's no eating fish, and you have to be careful with contact. But there's swimming that's going on currently. So at this point, it's small amounts. Like I said, like the gentleman also said, we need to let the experts look after this situation. But the best part is we know that because of new regulations, we know that it's not going to happen again, and this practice is no longer happening at the airport that caused the issue.
Nick, final word, if you like.
No comment. Thank you.
All right. Up next from CHCH, she's back, Manisa Donabalan.
Thanks, Mike. My question is for Terry. There's a lot of people who are graduating out of school and looking for jobs. When they are trying to get into the housing market, they're moving out of the city. And what would you do to try to keep everyone in the city?
Well, thank you for the question, Lisa. I have strong feelings about that. I had two of my own children graduate and move out of the city. And I feel that we need to keep Hamiltonians in Hamilton. We need to provide affordable housing. And when I say affordable housing, I mean not, necessarily has to be geared to income, but it has to fit within the average income, the average family income. We need to look at negotiating with developers and, cutting some red tape with the time that it takes to get permits, and hopefully they can provide homes that families can afford to live in, our youth can afford to purchase.
Candidate Moffat, thank you. I see candidate Nick Pellegrino like to get in.
Definitely. So we were talking about the question that came in from the audience regarding developers. Terry just spoke about developers. Without developers, we don't have any housing. So you can't have it this way and you can't have it that way. We either support developers or we don't support them. I'm all for supporting developers because we need housing. Definitely. That's the question, the number one question that's being asked all the time. Where are we going to get homes? And I'd like to see homes built to geared income. Definitely geared income, because right now the rates are going up through the roof. Bank of Canada is raising the rates almost every single day. And who's going to be able to afford a home? Not too many people. So I would like to work with developers to get homes built to geared income.
Candidate Taddison.
And Nick, you're very right on that. It's a national, it's also a provincial problem, and it requires coordination from from all levels of government. With intensification and infill, we can build along the light rail transit and the major transit networks. You can build affordable housing. It doesn't always have to be a single family dwelling unit. It can be something where we have built forms that are back to back, side by side. Still gives people privacy, but they have shared walls. Those are examples of housing that people can afford, as opposed to buying a single family dwelling unit, which I think for now is going to be a thing of the past for developers. People can get into the market for $500,000 as opposed to $800,000, $900,000, $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Response?
I just want to respond to that. Again, we're talking about developers. They're the ones building the homes, not some person just coming out of the sky and saying, okay, there's your home. We have to support developers when it comes time to supporting developers. We need homes, plain and simple, and they're the ones building the homes.
Candidate Moffat.
I agree. We do need homes. Hamilton has a serious housing crisis for affordable housing. And when I say that we need to negotiate with developers, I am talking about developing homes, but affordable homes. Developers are making way more money, huge profits on the homes they're building, and they're way out of the price range for the average family. We need modest, affordable housing built.
Hot topic. I will continue on. Candidate Taddison.
I just want to say to Terry, I can't agree more. There's a place for government with developers so that they can mandate a certain amount of, and when we say affordable housing, I think it's what Nick said, geared to income housing, so that people can afford it. So it's not more than 30% of their income, so that they have enough money to, go through entertainment, buy food, get the other necessities of life.
So, Candidate Moffat, you will get final word. We will go to candidate Nick Pellegrino.
Okay, so all I want to say on this is this. We all think developers are multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires. I bought some wood this past summer to build my deck. Does everybody know what wood costs nowadays? So, I mean, let's take a look at it realistically. I mean, these developers, these builders, they have to go out and buy goods. And goods nowadays are going through the roof. So all I have to say is we have to be able to support developers, support farmers, support whoever we can at any given time. Thank you.
Candidate Moffat, final word.
Well, I agree. We again, we have to support those industries, but I feel that there is a huge markup, and the market in Hamilton, housing market in Hamilton has just gotten out of control, and many residents have had to leave to other cities that are more affordable or other provinces that are more affordable. And as city councilors, we have a responsibility to negotiate and find something that works for us and keep our residents here. Thank you.
To all of you, thank you for that portion of our show. And of course, thank you very much to our media panel. Answers to Ward 11, they are coming fast and furious. And again, thank you to Manisa and John Wells. Now, on to our open forum, where the candidates have a minute to direct a question to other candidates, or one candidate. That candidate will have a chance to respond, and then we will open up the floor for any further discussion. To our candidates out there, I know you're listening and taking notes. If you'd like to get in on discussion, please raise your hand, let me know so we can get you involved. We drew numbers ahead of our broadcast to determine the order for this segment, and I believe, Mark Tattison, you are up first.
As councillors, we are responsible for more than just our ward. This question's going to go to Nick Lowers. Nick, how do we as a city better support individuals with addictions and mental health issues who are homeless and living on the streets?
Thank you for the question. We definitely have a significant issue with that in Hamilton, and we know that. And I think that something that significant should be run by the hospital system. We need to develop programs that actually link people who are on the streets to the supports and the treatment that they need, and that's a prior step to getting them affordable housing. So that's what I would focus on. I would focus on things like the RAM Clinic. The RAM Clinic is a clinic where people can walk right off the street, talk to someone, talk to a physician, and actually begin to get methadone or Suboxone or any kind of treatment that would help in their addiction treatment. So that would be my answer to that, is to actually people are on the street, in my view, because they're unwell. And that's a sad thing, and we need to link them to the proper supports and treatment.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with Nick. But my issue is that if these people are homeless and they have mental health issues or addiction issues, they can't get a health card. They don't know how to access the resources that are out there. Even if they could, without a health card, they can't get the treatment that they so badly require. So it goes hand in hand, but we need to help the people that are homeless. We have to have them have a resource center where they can access treatment or resources.
We will go to candidate Lowers before we get to you, candidate. Please.
Well, Terry, thank you. And I understand we have the same concern about that issue. The reality is I worked in the hospital system, and I did see people who came off the street with a health card in. They got treatment in the hospital, and they got better.
Candidate Tattison?
That's good.
And I agree with Nick that we do need to utilize the hospital's support network. However, I also feel there's a role in local government and provincial government for helping with this issue. So we have the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan that's been brought forward by the City of Hamilton. We also have consumption and treatment services. There's a pilot project that they're waiting to implement. There's also one that's privately in place inside of Hamilton. And as well, we have the housing and homelessness action plan. All these are great plans that are in the municipal wheelhouse, and if we can utilize them with the hospitals, I think that's where we can coordinate and have better success. And also, one last thing, we could also incorporate HATS, which is the Housing Association of Tiny, or the Hamilton Association for Tiny Shelters. They've got a place to play in this as well. Thank you.
Further discussion on this particular topic? Okay, we will move on. Candidate Nick Pellegrino, your question and who you're directing it to, please.
Hey, my question is also to Nick Lowers. Nick, you do not want growth, but you also want better services and new facilities in the ward. Without anticipated growth, where do you plan to cover these costs, or do you support increasing our municipal taxes in the city of Hamilton?
I disagree with the question. I think there are win-win solutions for everything that's just been proposed. I'm looking to, make Upper James a safer highway. I want to bring more police services to Binbrook and Mount Hope. And don't tell me there's no money in the budget. The police have $183 million per year. We've just spent millions of dollars investigating the Red Hill. So I actually believe the money's already there, and we've already paid for it. We're just not getting the service. I'll get us the service.
Okay, so I think he doesn't understand the question I asked. I asked that you don't want growth. In other words, you don't want any more homes built as far as housing goes. But you want to build a recreation center, you want to build another arena, you want to build a senior center for seniors, you want all these amenities, but you want to stop growth. So where do you intend on getting the money?
Yeah, again, a false assertion that I simply disagree with. I feel that there are win-win solutions and that there are pockets of land that make sense to develop responsibly while protecting our farmland. So, no, I'm not against growth. I want to grow responsibly.
Okay. So I didn't just make this question up. I was looking at your brochure, and your brochure says you're against growth.
I've got my brochure right here. I don't see anything in it that says I'm against growth, but thanks.
Well, okay.
Anyone else like to jump in on this? I'm seeing some heads down. So we will continue. We will continue to move on. You got to love my point of view from here, folks. Candidate Terry Moffat, your question and who you're directing it to, please.
Okay. I am going to direct my question to Nick Pellegrino. I believe that you said that you want to expand transit. You're for expanding transit into the areas. And even though many of them require significant upgrades in infrastructure and would require us to eliminate area rating. And the Ward 11 residents have been very clear that they do not want to eliminate area rating, and some of them have been very clear that they're not interested in transit. So my question to you is, how do you explain to Ward 11 residents that have already stated that they don't want their taxes to increase? What is your position?
So like I said earlier regarding transit, I would form a committee. I would have staff come in and explain to the people that want it and the people that don't want it what transit is all about. If it's feasible or if it's not feasible. There are people that have told me they want transit. Okay? Many people in Binbrook want transit right now. It's overcrowded. Like I said, there's cars being double parked on streets. And when the winter comes, that snowplow won't be able to get through the streets. So we're talking about climate change. Everybody wants climate change. If we don't get these cars off the street, then what are we doing? Are we just talking about climate change, that we're going to do something about it? How are we going to do something about it? I mean, we have natural gas buses now. So cars run on fuel, on methane gas, whereas natural gas buses run on natural gas. The fumes in the air aren't as bad as the car fumes. So, like I said, I'll take a look at it. We'll form a committee. And as far as area rating goes, I'm dead against area rating. I don't want to see area rating touched. That'll just stay there the way it is.
Thank you for that.
So, can you just repeat your question quickly, the essence of it?
The essence of it is basically, how are you going to explain your position on bringing transit to areas that will increase taxes and, the service isn't necessarily required. It's not proven that it's needed there. Because people have cars parked on the street doesn't mean they're going to sell them all. I have lots of cars parked on my street, and we do have transit.
Yeah, and I just want to disagree with you, Nick, again about the need or the desire for transit in Binbrook. We will have to look at that further down the road. But I think one of the things is, do we see transit as a service that should be free for people so that it's utilized more, or is it a revenue generator? And with your expertise, I'm just trying to, maybe down the road we'll talk about that.
If I may, Mike?
Yeah, of course.
So, the four of us, I don't think we live in Binbrook. Terry, do you live in Binbrook?
No, I do not.
Exactly. Neither does Nick, neither does Mark, neither do I. I've been out there. I have my campaign office right in Binbrook, and I've been talking to Binbrook people on a steady basis, and I know what I'm talking about when it comes to transit. You three are talking about area rating, and I agree, okay? But when you get on council, there's going to be, 6 suburban councilors versus 9, okay?
8 and 7.
When the time comes, when area rating comes, you'll see that those people from the city will want to do away with area rating. So it's just like this urban boundary. The provincial government is going to shove that down our throats. We will have no say, and it'll be the same as area rating. I don't want to see area rating touched, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, if we don't do something about transit, that area rating is going to be done. So that's all I'm saying. I want to take a look at transit for the residents. I've been talking to them, and that's all I can say.
Candidate Tattison.
I'd just like to take exception with your statement that just because we don't live in Binbrook doesn't mean we don't know Binbrook. I've lived in the community for over 50 years, and many of my closest friends live in Binbrook, and I have conversations with them on a daily basis for years and years, and I know where they stand on this issue. So one of the things that I want to say to you, Nick, first is that transit might be coming because we may not have a choice. But I'm going to support the constituents there, and we will see what happens. You are right. We live in a democracy of a council where it's almost, I think it's basically 8 versus 7, and depending on which way the mayor votes, that determines which way things go. If it does come to Binbrook, I'm going to say this. I don't want people who are in who are in rural areas that don't have access to that busing to have to pay for it. So for me, it's a bigger picture of urban versus rural. We don't want somebody on the back roads of Binbrook on Hall Road or somewhere on Leeming Road in Mount Hope that have no access to it. So the big thing for it is maybe we have to rejig this idea about area rating to be a rural versus urban.
And I agree.
Anybody else like to jump in? Okay. Like the conversation there. Thank you very much. Nick Lowers, you are up next. Your question and who you are directing
Can
to.
I ask a question to your question?
To my question. Well, you can ask any question you want directed to a candidate. How about
Only
that?
one candidate, or can
Yes.
I open it to all?
One candidate, and then it's open for discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so I think that what I've seen at City Hall is a very negative tone and the types of things in politics that really turn people off. So I was hoping that maybe each of us could, talk about some of the points that we appreciate about the other candidates who are running here tonight. And I
You're
can
going to direct
start.
that to who? Just to start.
Sure, Mr. Taddison.
There we go.
Well, I want to thank Nick for paying for my Coke when we had dinner a couple weeks back. That was nice of you.
Thank you.
Terry, I know Terry from before, and I know family members of hers, and I think again, I just want to say it's good to see you and get reacquainted. Nick, I don't know much about you other than you had the big signs in Bimbrook, and like I said, we talked for a couple minutes at the fair, and I enjoyed that conversation. So I can't really comment because everybody's so new to me, Nick. However, I see good people in front of me, and I think that Ward 11 will be well suited with any one of us.
Thank you.
Candidate Moffat?
I agree with Mark, and I have had an opportunity to have very short conversations with both of the Nicks, but I enjoyed them, and I feel that any one of us would make good representatives for the constituents because we all care. We all care about the issues, and I know that, being part of the community is important to all of us, and listening to the constituents, and I'm grateful for that.
Candidate Pellegrino?
Well, I want to thank Nick for bringing this up because I have the utmost respect for my three opponents. For anyone to want to run in politics, it takes a lot of courage, including myself. Never been involved in politics other than to be behind the scenes, and I'm a people person. I love to help people, and that's why I said I would form committees every single day, every single hour, every single minute. That's what it's all about. They're the ones paying the taxes. They're the ones that deserve to be on a committee and say yay or nay. And like I said, I'll end it at this, that the utmost respect for the three of you. I really, mean that sincerely.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Nick, would you like to answer your own question?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Yes. First, I'd like to say, I'm just going to go kind of, in order. I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Taddison for, the work that you've done with children and students across the city as a teacher. It's a hard job. My mother is a retired teacher as well, and I know you've made a difference. I really appreciate that. Mr. Pellegrino, when I first put my name forward to run, you had me over to your house, and we had a good conversation there, and you were very hospitable. And I appreciate that. And Terry, I didn't know much about you until the Binbrook Fair, but when we met, I found that you're a lovely person and very positive and encouraging, and I appreciate that.
I am being, would you like, yes, please.
I just do want to correct Nick. I am a teacher, and and I was a teacher that's very valuable, but I was also a principal for 18 years in the system, and that requires a little bit different skill set. So I just want to be acknowledged for that as well.
Acknowledgement
a very good one,
made.
I can add.
Thank you.
That's what I meant to acknowledge, Mark. I apologize. That's a hard job.
I'm being told we have a couple minutes. We're going to try to get one more viewer question in. With that said, we will quickly go to this question. I'm just waiting for it. There we go. The viewer asks, would you have supported the position that the city took with its employees, requiring them to get the COVID-19 vaccine to keep working? If you would like to get involved with this question, let me know. However, I am being told it should be going to Terry to start.
Ah, that's funny.
And we have 2 minutes, folks.
I have already responded to this question once, and it may be the same person asking it, but I feel that getting the COVID-19 vaccine is a very personal decision that, people have different reasons, maybe health reasons or religious reasons for doing it or not doing it. I felt responsible to do it myself. But again, I wasn't at any of the discussions that happened at City Hall with the city workers, so I can't comment on that part of it.
Candidate Taddison?
I'd just like to state that in the end, I think council got it right and not putting us in a place where we're financially responsible for so much liability in with people losing jobs and so forth and battles with unions. So again, I think in the end, they got it right. They started out, nobody knew. As things progressed, I think we all ended up with a good solution.
Candidate Pellegrino?
I have to agree with Mark. I think in the end, they definitely got it right. I mean, between the judicial inquiry with the Red Hill and the money being spent on Shadoke Creek, we didn't need more money being spent on something that, as far as I'm concerned, wasn't right. So they absolutely got it right.
Wonderful to hear. Final word?
Yeah, personally, I'm vaccinated. However, I feel that it is a personal choice, and I would have worked with Councillor Pauls on that. I agree with the other candidates here. That would have been 400 city employees, 400 families who would have been affected financially, their mortgages, their children going to school over something that it's now over. And I'm glad it's over and that we're moving towards solutions.
To each of our candidates, thank you so much for this lively and friendly debate. Unfortunately, our time with the candidates has run out. Once again, they are Nick Lowers, Terry Moffat, Nick Pellegrino, and Mark Taddison. Hamilton, this concludes our Ward 11 debate. Remember, it's our Hamilton, our vote. And Election Day, it's coming up quick, October 24th. You can find everything you need to know, including a list of all of the candidates running for City Council, as well as the public and Catholic school boards on the City of Hamilton website at hamilton.ca/elections. Please, I can't stress it enough, I've said it many times, get out and vote, whether in person or by mail-in ballot. Then join us that evening for all your local election results. And a reminder that you can find a complete schedule of all of our upcoming election debates on our website at cable14.com/elections. We especially invite you to join us next Tuesday, September 27th, beginning at 7 p.m. for the live mayoral debate. If you're watching us live tonight, please stay tuned for the Ward 12 debate coming up at 8:30. But before that, we have part 2 of our exclusive sit-down interview with Mayor Fred Eisenberger as he prepares to leave office. I'm Mike Fortune. We'll see you again soon, Hamilton.
I'm Gagwag. My name means everything.
Tom Longboats.
I am Wolf Clan, Onondaga Nation. I've run many different races. I've run to survive and to be free. I've run to win for honor.
His people might be lazy, but this one's damn fast.
My people respected our runners, people who carried important messages from village to village.
I need a guide to the next post. Dispatch carrier, sir. I can get you there.
God sakes, man, slow down. Who do you think I am, Tom Longboat?
No, sir. I am.
Running makes me feel alive. It's everything.
Tom Longboat was the first Indigenous person to win the Boston Marathon. He ran his way to international fame and became an inspiration to generations of athletes.
Hamilton's Premier Pitch competition is back in person for the first time in 2 years. Enter the Lions Lair, where 16 startups face off in high-stakes challenges for a cash grand prize. Visit lionslair.ca to learn more and watch live on September 28th at 7 p.m. on Cable 14 and cable14.com.
Things seem to be getting back to normal for these connoisseurs. Now you can go and taste or drink some fine vintages again. Ah, a return to normalcy for these two lovebirds. Now you can finally have that specialty drink your favorite bartender is known for. Pace yourself, though. It's been a while. Now you can hit the town again, sharing stories together for the crazy year we've all had. But you still can't do that.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
We are back with Hamilton Mayor Fred Eisenberger, taking a bit of a trip down memory lane. We've covered your early years coming here as a new Canadian, Mayor Fred. And just before we go on with when you first find your way to the mayor's chair, just a quick reflection on Leuna Station and how that has become such an important, iconic place for new Canadians, from you, before you, and to this very day. So you've got a real tie there.
Yeah, that that location, was central to our immigration here, and it was central to, trains were everything once upon a time.
Yes.
You came by boat and then you got on the train, and cars weren't all that significant. My dad actually came over in an airplane, but it was a prop plane, and it was very rare that you would come over by airplane because it wasn't all that popular then. So the train station was, the place to be. It's where all the events were happening, and then sadly, trains went out of favor, and Leuna Station, or the train station, CN station, stood there for the better part of 20 plus years, empty and underutilized. And lots of credit to Leuna having taken it on as a project. Every time I go there, it kind of tugs at my heartstrings, because that's where it all started for us. And Lister Block is kind of in that same space. So I remember my uncle had a hairdressing shop right at the very corner of Lister and King William. Right at the corner of James and King William, in that rounded part of the Lister Block. He had a hairdressing shop there, so I would visit there often. And again, another location that historically was the first mall of the country. And again, Leuna was the one that came in and said, we're going to refurbish this building on your behalf, city, and then we ended up purchasing it, and it is what it is today in terms of great space. So a lot of nice kind of historical connections to places that I kind of grew up with, that many of us grew up with.
And continue to, as we welcome more and more new Canadians today. So we talked about arriving to Hamilton as an 8-year-old boy, speaking no English, from Amsterdam. You get involved in politics, you run for Ward 5 in Hamilton, and then you make a gutsy bid for the mayoralty in 2000. You lose, but you try again. And in 2006, tell us where your head was and what happened.
Well, again, an opportunity to, the bug hadn't gone away. So
you're in private business, doing consulting, working in the harbor.
That's right. And at some point I'm thinking, well, I'm not really done with kind of the broader city issues, and I very much like to get there. And my friend Larry Deanne, and I say this with all sincerity, he's a great friend, always has been, but had some difficulties, during his mayorship. As we all do at some level or another, and
we'll get to some of yours too.
Well,
soon.
of course, and every council has its challenges, and that will always be thus. But he'd had some challenges, and so at that moment in time, I thought that there's an opportunity potentially for another run at the mayorship, and decided to step in one more time, and was successful very narrowly. Again, a narrow vote, some 500 vote difference, so it was a squeaker that night, and you were probably covering it at the time.
Yes, I was.
And it was one of those nights that just never ended, because they were forever bouncing back between different vote tallies, and then ultimately, as it turned out, it ended up being a 500 vote victory. I will say that Larry Deanne God bless him, is still a good friend of mine, even though I was the cause for him no longer being in office. But we have both kind of rationalized that issue. And we've moved on, and he's been a great contributor in our city, then and since. And so I have lots of respect for Larry and the Annie family for sure. But then there was an opportunity to kind of get back to other issues at the city. Some of them were economic development. I thought we were not putting enough time and effort into economic development to actually make up some of the lost job opportunities that our former industrial past had eliminated. So if you recall the waterfront back in the day, it was International Harvester, Procter & Gamble, of course Dofasco, Stelco, Firestone, Studebaker. There was just a whole range of businesses that employed people. We lost all of those employment opportunities, and we needed to work doubly hard to try and replace them. But we didn't double up on the economic development department staff and resources to be able to do that. And so that was the first thing I did when I got back, is I kicked in another $5 million to staff up the economic development department. And it's been a great success ever since. So these folks have done terrific work in finding new employment opportunities and bringing them to our city. And you can see them all around you now. In every sector, we've got growing, burgeoning new employment opportunities. So that's the testament of the good work of our economic development department.
You talk a lot about vision. You always had a vision. And I'm thinking about the mayoralty campaign. You were one of the first, if not the first, local politician to really turn to social media. And what did that do for you? What did that do for your campaign, do you think?
Well, it was a great attention getter. And social media was very much in its infancy, but it became kind of a flashpoint media story because we were the first to actually step into it. By virtue of the fact that I had some good, young, talented people that understood and knew that kind of space, whether it was Facebook or YouTube, which is what ended up being the clip that. And it was a catchy. I regret some of the things that might have been said on that clip, to be honest. But
like
it was
what? Like what?
Well, we made some accusations around where green carts were coming from, and some of them were a little over the top, and but they got attention. But I do regret some of the comments. But notwithstanding, it was a departure from where campaigning had been. And certainly now it's very much a part of anyone's campaign to be active on social media, whether it's now at Twitter or Facebook or any of the Instagram sites. That's a significant part of your outreach opportunity. So it was interesting to be part of that first beginning when all of that space was in its infancy.
Of course, council decorum and honesty and transparency. Big headlines today, and they were years ago. You were involved in the Integrity Commission. Tell us how that came to be and what you felt about it at the time.
Well, given there were some accusations and challenges that the previous mayor had in terms of accounting on the campaign side, and it's certainly my memory of campaigns previous, the ones that I had witnessed to, that it was a very loose kind of accountability approach to it all, and so I thought it needed to be overseen by someone, but it shouldn't be members of council or staff. So Integrity Commission became the logical choice, and it was actually very leading edge at the time. No one else in the province had an Integrity Commissioner. We were one of the first, and it's now been broadly adopted right across the province as a standard to adhere to. That really manages, not only, accountability during campaigns and the costs and where the money comes from, but also, the integrity of, how you approach your citizens and how do you speak to is there a code of conduct? Yes, there is. Should there be a certain behavior expectation from members of council towards constituents and towards staff? Yes, there should be. And that's all now been codified through the code of conduct, and that's then overseen by the Integrity Commissioner. And as some have had challenges in that space, and some penalties have been delivered to hopefully improve behavior. And I think things have improved significantly.
So that was a big foundation, and here we are today still working on issues related to that. But still with that term as mayor, when that term ended, you knew you wanted to go again?
Well, you know, that term was, we're talking about the term 2006 to 10. Yes, I knew I wanted to go again, yes. But we had been dealing with a stadium issue. And
remember that?
Yeah, and you know, it was controversial. I was very proud and pleased to have pulled us into the city, into the Pan Am Games process. Mm-hmm. It really is the only way that we would ever replace a stadium, and that invariably ended up happening. And so I led, you know, City Council through staying with Pan Am, focusing on the stadium as part of the benefit that we would invest in, but we get monies from other levels of government to do. The issue became location, and you know, I still to this day believe that the waterfront location is the right place, should have been the right place.
So many Hamiltonians agree with you. What happened? Can you share any of that inside story with us these many years later?
I would say what happened was that the Tiger Cats just came out and said that they will not play in that location. That was really the foundation of it all.
Why would the Ticats not want to have a brand new stadium on the Hamilton waterfront?
To this day, I have not had a good answer to that. You know, in terms of location, if you look at it now, I mean, it is the place to be. The waterfront is developing in spades. It would have taken up one portion of the lands that we actually purchased to do the stadium there. It would have had ample amount of additional parking, would have had connections to the GO train. I mean, all the rationales around why it was the right place, you know, were evident and clear then. The only problem was that they were looking for, I think, the American-style stadium. They were looking for something that they could own full stop, that had you know, a large parking lot wrapped around it, that they could charge people for parking, and that they could actually generate all the revenue within that space and keep it all for the Tiger Cats. The city had a different view, and I had a different view, which is we need to spread that benefit around to downtown and to downtown restaurants. So pre-game, have people go out, enjoy our inner city, or enjoy the waterfront, which is now developing, and you know, spread that benefit and wealth around to other places as well. So it was a different philosophy in terms of what we wanted that stadium to do. The Tiger Cats had their view. Never happened, because now they're in exactly the same place.
Still stuck inside a residential
Parking
neighborhood.
issues are no better. In fact, they're terrible. It's a great stadium. I love the stadium.
Yes.
I have no argument against the stadium. It ended up being a fabulous facility, but there's no kind of ancillary benefits that have come out of that. So I'll, you know, I've ended my therapy on the stadium issue.
I was going to say.
And, you know, it's over, it's done with, and now, you know, you move on and you look for other opportunities. And for those lands, those Tiffany lands, those lands on the waterfront or near the waterfront, is now, you know, identified as a burgeoning film studio location that I think is going to be fabulous. And so, you know, tenacity says don't stop. There's opportunity. There's other opportunity, and the film industry is just exploding with Crave and Prime and all the other platforms that are looking for content.
There's always something shooting in Hamilton.
Yeah, there's always something shooting in Hamilton, and they also need to be able to produce that right here in Hamilton, and that's what they're angling for. So the complex that they're proposing, and I think we're going to make the arrangements with this developer, is a new film studio over and above the one they already have, residential on site, because people are going to be moving in and out of the film location, so some sort of residential hotel, public realm space, and ancillary businesses that feed into the film studio opportunity. So it's going to be quite a complex, and I think people are going to be very proud of that.
So that worked out well, but you lost the election.
But I lost the election.
On the LRT?
I would say largely on the stadium issue.
Yeah.
The LRT issue was already in the mix, and it was already something that I'd put on the table. I don't think that was the defining issue. I think the stadium was the defining issue.
The stadium was the big one.
And it was also the defining issue for me coming back.
Well, on that note then, because the LRT goes back a long way to when I was covering council in the late 70s and 80s.
Yep.
So at what point were we in the LRT at that point of your term in office?
We were positioning it to become a viable opportunity for the province and the federal government, predominantly the province. So I happened to be on the Metrolinx board at the time, and which was the founding board for what Metrolinx is now. So myself and Rob McIsaac and other mayors from other communities were part of the Metrolinx, including Hazel McCallion. And we came together and figured out what Metrolinx was intended to be, and then actually put that into place with some great administrators like Michael Fenn, whose name you will remember.
Yes.
And we actually established Metrolinx as it is today. And then, obviously other board members have come along to bring it forward. And at that moment in time, LRT was kind of born out of, what Metrolinx could do in other communities and what they should be doing in Hamilton in terms of, future-looking public transportation. So it really started when I was at Metrolinx at that period of time. And it really has become the vision, a significant part of the vision going forward, beyond waterfront, beyond film studio. It actually interconnects all of that in a very significant way, and there's great development benefit to be had out of that project.
And we'll come back to that a little later as well, to where we are at this point in time. So did you have a plan B? This election's over, the stadium, that's gone away, the LRT is sort of happening. So what's happening with Fred Eisenberger now?
Well, once again, I'm on the outs, and I got
and you've
a call.
got a family now.
I
mean,
have family.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Diane, was the stable career.
Good for Diane. Shout out to you, Diane.
Absolutely. None of this is successful without support
Diane,
of family.
yes.
And Diane was, a dental hygienist with a stable career and did that work for 40 years. Now retired.
Is
but
she? Give her my best.
Yeah, I will. And very, happy doing that, and supported me all the way through. And I got a call that there was an opportunity at the Canadian Urban Institute. They needed a new CEO. Their current CEO, Glenn Murray, had just departed, and they were looking for another CEO. And so I made application and went through the interview process, and I was selected to be the next Chief Executive Officer of the Urban Institute.
This kind of ties back into your Mohawk days. You're looking at the environment and infrastructure, and so now you're back taking that little off-ramp into that sector
again. It was
again.
spectacular for me. It's urban design, urban city building, urban policy, on a multinational level. So, and the Urban Institute had offices in Ukraine. Breaks my heart to see what's happening in Ukraine right now, but we had office in Kiev. We had office in Zaporizhia in Ukraine. We had offices in Manila and Iloilo in the Philippines. Offices in Jamaica and another one in Somalia. And all projects on behalf of the federal government and Economic Development Canada, where they're providing different kinds of aid to different kinds of countries. Sometimes it's food aid, sometimes it's governance aid, and sometimes it's aid in terms of information or knowledge that we have that we could share with other countries. And so great staff, great opportunity to participate in city building in different places around the world, and really fed into the ongoing knowledge base that I had in terms of what is city building, what is it really all about, how does it get impacted not only here but in other places of the world. And so what a wonderful experience for me. I was forever grateful to have been there, but after 3 years or so decided that that my work at the city of Hamilton wasn't quite finished.
It wasn't done. But how important was it, do you think, or is it for all local politicians to see other cities, to step back out of your own surroundings and see what's going on elsewhere in the world, in the country, in the province?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical in my view. I mean, you need to not only have a vision, but you also need to keep learning. Keep learning about what's successful in other places. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, I didn't invent LRT. Light rail transit has been around, for generations. And the question is, how do you utilize it and make it work for you? And a place like Hamilton, we need redevelopment along the corridor from Eastgate to McMaster. And so when you look at that, saying, LRT will help generate that? Yes, it will. And the anticipation is that this is what you get out of not only public transportation, but the redevelopment opportunities. So learning, as you point out, what other communities are doing globally is a real opportunity to kind of take a lot of those good ideas and put them into effect in your community. Not everything works here that works in Europe, for instance. I mean, we just don't have the same kind of infrastructure. The size is different. But there are elements of it that could be very successful here that we really don't have to reinvent. And public transportation and LRT is one of them.
So you're saying you started thinking that your work in the city wasn't done. After the break, we'll talk about the big comeback.
Any eligible voter can request a vote-by-mail package to cast their ballot for the upcoming municipal election on October 24th, 2022. You can request a vote-by-mail package anytime from September 1st until September 23rd, 2022. You must be on the voters list to request a vote-by-mail package. A vote-by-mail ballot package includes a voting instruction sheet, a ballot, an inner ballot secrecy envelope, a voter declaration form, an outer return envelope with prepaid postage. Vote-by-mail packages will be mailed the week of September 26, 2022. You can only use black or blue ink to fill out the ballot. Do not use a pencil. Once you have filled out your ballot, place it in the secrecy envelope that is included in your vote-by-mail package. You must also sign the voter declaration form included in the vote-by-mail package and include it in your envelope when sending the ballot back. Place your inner secrecy envelope with your completed ballot and your signed voter declaration form into the outer return envelope. Return envelopes come with prepaid postage, so no stamp is required. Be sure to seal the envelope. Now it's time to drop off your sealed envelope. You can return it in person at a vote-by-mail drop box available at City Hall or any of the city's 5 municipal service center locations. You can also send your sealed envelope back via mail by placing it in a Canada Post mailbox. Make sure your vote-by-mail package is received by Election Day. This means you must mail it back by October 13th, or drop it off at any of the municipal service centers by October 21st in the designated drop boxes. You can also drop it off at City Hall before 8 p.m. Election Day, October 24th. Remember to vote in the municipal election this October. If you have any questions or want to learn more, visit hamilton.ca/elections.
Get your phones out, Hamilton. Scan the QR code on your screen to take you directly to cable14.com, where you can find out about our shows, see our TV schedule, learn about our hosts, and so much more.
After a night out with friends, you might find yourself at a ride check. Impaired driving is serious. It can mean losing your license, fines, a criminal record, even jail. Be a designated driver. Reduce impaired driving everywhere. Arrive alive. Drive sober.
You can visit our website at cable14.com. Like us on Facebook at Cable14 Hamilton, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Cable14.
We need you to help build a Hamilton First. It's the first of its kind affordable housing for women and families, and you can do it by purchasing tickets to YWCA Hamilton's Catch the Ace Lottery. You can win cash and build affordable housing. Learn more and get tickets at ywcahamiltonace.ca. Don't forget to play responsibly.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, known as North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. and welcome to Our Hamilton, Our Vote, the 2022 municipal election debates presented live by Cable 14 in partnership with our good friends at the Hamilton Spectator. I'm your moderator, Mike Fortune. For the next 90 minutes, we have invited the candidates for councillor in Ward 12. We've got a full house here tonight. Joining us in studio, Chuck Elkerton, Robert Babbitt, Craig Kassar, Richard Deverson, Carl Hanley, William Robert Hume, Cindy Kay, Meg Marquetos, Bob Mayton, and finally, Pamela Mitchell. To all of you, thank you very much for being here. It's going to be a fun debate. Our format includes 2 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves. Then, our local media panel will be posing questions. Viewers at home, hey, we've been asking, please send us your questions. If you're watching live, you can send them via Twitter at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com to share anything you'd like to ask our candidates. And finally, we will wrap up with an open forum for the candidates to question and respond to each other. As usual, I will be doing my best to keep us on track with what's expected for each section and how we are doing for time. All candidates, they have been provided with the format for tonight's show, so they have been formally known for quite a while, so we thank you for that. Now, let's get started with our 2-minute introductory statements. If needed, you will get a 10-second warning before I call time. Up first, Chuck Elkerton.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to share my vision for Ward 12, Ancaster, West Flamborough. Why am I the best candidate? I am a lifelong resident with a passion for my hometown and its residents. I was a municipal employee for 36 years in Ancaster and Hamilton. I am a recently retired manager of facility operations and maintenance, where I worked with union and non-union staff, senior management, council, and the mayor's office. I am principled and honest. Over the past 40 years, I have played and coached many youth and adult teams in Ancaster. This has offered me a unique perspective on my community. I am very well involved in the community and was appointed and served 12 years on the Ancaster Community Council as an advisor to the council for Ancaster issues. My family and I have participated in the Ancaster Heritage Days, food drives, Christmas tree lighting, Team Up to Clean Up, and other special events and fundraisers. I want to preserve Ancaster Village Core and historic buildings that make our area special. I believe in reasonable development, adhering to planning policies, fair taxes, broadening our tax base, and protecting our environment. I will strive to protect green space, specifically Ancaster High School fields, and support our seniors with the expansion of the Senior Center. Safe streets for our citizens and the completion of the 403 westbound exit at Mohawk Road are also priorities for me. I know Ward 12 residents want to maintain area rating, and I'll work hard on their behalf. I will do everything I can to ensure Ancaster West Flamborough continues to be a community where people aspire to live. Vote Chuck Elkerton. Vote for me. I will work for you. Contact me at chuckelkerton.ca. Thank you.
Candidate Elkerton, thank you very much. Up next, Robert Babbitt.
Thank you, Cable 14, Hamilton Spectator. The role of City Councillor is to represent the constituents and the interests of the municipality, develop and evaluate policies and programs, determine the services the municipality provides, ensure the accountability, the transparency of the operations, including the activities of senior management, maintain financial integrity, ensure the financial and administrative resources are being used as efficiently as possible. My past and current career experience has provided me with the knowledge to undertake this enormous responsibility, some which include design and implement business strategies, budgetary accountability, oversee daily operations of the company's IT, marketing, and finance, driving operational results, establish policies that promote company culture, vision, and diversity. It's time for me to give back in a political capacity to the city I was born and raised in and to the community where I've resided with my family the past 20 years. I want to be a strong advocate for my constituents and all those who do not have a voice at City Hall. Establishing the Diane Babbitt Memorial, over 11 years we've raised $450,000 for McMaster Children's Hospital. I was able to see the power in helping others and the positive impact on people's lives. One of the responsibilities of the incoming councillor will be to develop a blueprint for the future with the collaboration and cooperation of its constituents. Creating this vision, we must consider our community's assets, such as the agricultural lands, architecture, and historical preservation. Any land use plans must be built around protecting these assets. We are living in a rapidly changing world. The post-COVID economy is reshaping and changing the way we live, work, and shop. Communities such as Ancaster must prepare for the future so they prosper. Today, people and businesses can choose to live and work anywhere. Communities that do not differentiate themselves will have no competitive advantage. I'll finish up by saying that successful communities understand that towns don't necessarily have the resources by themselves to compete with larger communities. Regional cooperation doesn't mean giving up your autonomy. It simply recognizes problems such as traffic congestion, road maintenance, homelessness.
Thank you very
protection,
much for that opening
regional
introduction.
funds.
We will continue with Craig Kazar.
I was born in Hamilton and have lived in Ancaster for 20 years, where my wife and I have raised our 3 children. I've become increasingly troubled by the oversimplification of municipal issues and polarization within council. Voters deserve better. I knew that now was the time to offer my expertise and greater service to our community, and demonstrating my seriousness and commitment, in April, I became the first person to declare my candidacy. We will face many challenging issues during the next 4 years, making our streets safer, preserving our heritage while building a more vibrant community, and ensuring our tax dollars are spent wisely, among others. To do so effectively, council must be cohesive and collaborative, qualities that have been woefully absent. Good decisions and durable solutions require an understanding of complex issues and how they interconnect. A single issue or limited focus or a narrow skill set fails to serve the community. I'm a visionary and strategic thinker and a collaborative leader. I've honed my skills during 24 years in leadership at Maple Leaf Foods, where I've built relationships with diverse stakeholders, managed large teams, large projects, and large budgets, solved complex problems through active listening and evidence-based analysis, and successfully negotiated outcomes to the benefit of all concerned. These skills are critical in a counselor. I'm a longtime and passionate community volunteer. I co-founded Save Our Streams Hamilton and have volunteered with Stop Sprawl, RBG, David Suzuki Foundation, and Community Fridges. I'm hardwired to listen and help others, and to ensure their voices are heard. Over the past 5 months, I've spoken to suburban and rural residents, farmers and community groups, and business people, responding thoughtfully and openly to their questions. This is what you can expect from me as a counselor. I'm the only candidate with the vision, the leadership experience, the diverse skill set, and demonstrated commitment to community that Ward 12 deserves and needs. Thank you.
Craig, thank you for that. Up next, Richard Deverson.
Thank you, Mike. I'd like to begin by thanking the Ferguson family for their extraordinary public service over these past 4 decades. Also, Cable 14 and the Hamilton media for providing a platform upon which democracy can flourish. Also, Canadian servicemen and women and veterans for their sacrifices in protecting our democratic way of life. My name is Richard Deverson. I'm running for Ward 12 Councillor. I'm a Hamilton Wentworth boy, born and raised, educated, worked, worshipped, and raised my family here. I realize how blessed I was to have been born in one of the great cities of the absolute greatest country in the world, Canada. But with that blessing comes an obligation to work judiciously for the betterment of all. If elected, my priorities will be to find ways to prevent traffic disruptions on our Hamilton quadrangle, the Link, the Red Hill, the QEW over the Skyway, and the 403, and to mitigate the chaos when they do happen. I want to encourage people to take the bus rather than their own ultra-convenient private vehicles. I pledge to hold a tight rein on the public purse in these inflationary times. The main reason for my candidacy is my opposition to the LRT, plan to run from Eastgate Square to McMaster, only for the next 100 years, a long-term scar on our major streets. Although the federal and provincial governments will cover most of the $34 billion costs, those are still our tax dollars being spent. Call me old-fashioned, but I am of the belief that government money should be spent only in ways which actually benefit the lives of the citizens, not frivolously. Buses are our best solution. Whatever the LRT can do, buses can do 1,000 times better. Buses have infinite scheduling flexibility to adapt to change. This on-again, off-again, and now on-again LRT has more lives than a cat. I hope to take the last of those lives. But powerful pro-LRT forces exist, and against them, there seems to be only me and the truth. If you agree, please consider voting for me on October 24th.
Candidate
Thank you.
Deverson, thank you. We will move now to candidate Carl Hanley. You're up.
Thank you, Mike.
First of all, congratulations to all of my fellow candidates for taking the step forward to represent our wonderful Ancaster and Flamborough communities and the greater city of Hamilton. My name is Carl Handley, and as you may have guessed by my accent, I am from Ireland. My wife and children and I have called Ancaster home for the past 11 years, joining with family who have lived in the Hamilton area for nearly 50 years. Being a part of the community means a tremendous amount to me. A president of our Rotary Club and board member of Ancaster Community Services. I've spent years traveling the world for an international organization, working in the manufacturing industry, managing multi-million-dollar projects and budgets. But I was always drawn back home here to this special place, Ancaster, and the greater city of Hamilton. This is why my wife and I invested into the community and set up our own business in the mental health and business coaching industry. I now counsel HR departments and work with leaders in leadership training. Ensuring Ancaster and Flamborough continue to be this special community for the generations to come is why I am running for this election. I've talked to hundreds at the doors, and here's what I've heard, and here's what I'm fighting for. Getting value for our taxes and the high taxes that we pay. Tackling gridlock and the increasingly unsafe streets that we have due to this congestion. Preserving the uniqueness of our Ancaster Village core, and be a strong advocate for entrepreneurs, restaurants, and farms. My experience in business has taught me about prudent fiscal management and respecting your tax dollars. My leadership in local organizations and business travel throughout the world have taught me to network, communicate, and get results. I'm committed to bringing much needed truth, clarity, authenticity, and accountability to City Hall. If you believe in this as I do, please vote for me, Carl Handley, at October 24th. Thank you.
Candidate Hanley, thank you. We will now be moving on to William Robert Hume. Please take it away.
Thank you. I was born in Hamilton and I grew up in Dundas, and my family came from Northern Ireland. They started a family business at Peter's Corners in 1959. They are now deceased, unfortunately, but I worked at that family business all my life. I've just sold it about 2 years ago and I'm now retired and just turned 65. I was formerly on the Flamborough Council, Ward 4, of which half of Ward 4 now is in the Dundas Ward and the other half is Ancaster Ward. So this is basically as close to my old stomping grounds as I can get. I was serving on council when the one-tier came into play. It came in around 2000, and I look upon this as the 20th anniversary, although it's actually 22 years, but I figured it takes a couple of years to get up and running. I have been approached by many of my constituents to take a run at it again. And I thought it over. At first I was reluctant, but I've gone to Queen's Park and talked to a lot of MPs down there, and I came home and decided to run because of the issues facing us. In this package alone, if immigration numbers hit this area, it's going to upset the housing markets, it's going to cause congestion and traffic, and from my previous experience on Flamborough Council, I strongly believe that we have to work with the upper tiers. The upper tiers are sending the message, and there's a lot of issues on the table which we will have to handle, and we will have to work with the upper tiers. Thank you.
Candidate Hume, thank you. Up next, we have candidate Cindy Kay. Please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you to Cable 14 for hosting such an important event, and to all media partners for your involvement. I also would like to thank all the candidates for stepping up and running for this position. It takes courage and a lot of work to do what we're doing. As Mike said, I'm Cindy Kay, and I'm running for City Council to serve residents of Ward 12. I'm pragmatic, balanced, and trustworthy, and will serve this ward with honesty and transparency. I'm a first-generation Canadian. My parents immigrated to Hamilton from Croatia for a better life. Their incredible work ethic is what my siblings and I witnessed growing up, and it is a core value in my family's life. I'm a proud Hamiltonian, went to school here, met my remarkable husband of over 26 years here, and we are raising our 2 lovely daughters in Ward 12. Our community offers so many wonderful family-centered spaces, which made it easy to call home for almost 20 years. It's such an advantage to be able to walk or ride our bikes to many destinations within our community. Having the opportunity to shop at nearby farms for fresh, locally grown foods makes this area that much more unique. Now is the time to bring gender diversity to the City Council table for Ward 12. I'm like many of you, a resident that wants to see the best of our community. I want to grow old here alongside my husband. I want to watch our kids move to the next stage of their lives. Now is the time for me to put in the effort and hard work to ensure this community is shaped positively for our future and for our children's future. Thank you.
Candidate Kay, thank you for that. Up next, candidate Meg Marketos.
Thank you, Mike, and Cable 14 and the Hamilton Spectator. I'm happy to be here in the company of my fellow advocates for Ancaster, West Flamborough in Ward 12. My name is Meg Marketos, and I'm not a politician. So the more often my name is repeated, the higher my recognition scores, a major objective of my campaign. Meg Marketos is a single working mother, an accomplished multitasker with a proven experience in negotiations and arbitration, as has every mother of 4 daughters, 3 of them teenagers. My biography and platform are available on my website and elsewhere to review at your leisure, but I'm a newbie and you deserve to know what matters to me. I do not believe in simplistic solutions, pretense, invisible agendas, and all the other subtle forms of truth stretching that have become so common elsewhere. I endorse a couple of cliches. I believe that governing is the art of the possible, and I do not believe that good is the enemy of perfect. Compromise is often the only way to get something worthwhile done. I believe a group of people can accomplish much if purposeful advocacy combines with respect for those advocating other positions. If elected, listening to the residents of Ward 12 and advocating for their interests at City Hall will be my full-time job. Thanks for listening to me, Meg Marketos. Your vote, your voice. Vote Meg on October 24th.
Candidate Marketos, thank you for that. Thank you. We will now move on to Bob Mayton.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Mayton. I've lived in the Maywood neighborhood for 20 years, and I love our town. I have a master's degree and a doctorate in social policy and a master's in social work. I was a senior research and policy analyst in health and safety, and I was a social worker in healthcare, psychiatry, and addictions. I founded the Ancaster Village Heritage Community 3 years ago to address traffic, the demolition of our heritage, threats to farms and wetlands, and massive overdevelopments threatening our quality of life. I've been busy 24/7 and I've achieved a lot. We updated the city demolition bylaw, making demolitions more difficult for developers. We helped many neighborhoods to address their concerns about overdevelopment and heritage destruction. In 2020, I led an inventory of 110 pre-Confederation buildings. We documented their historic importance and increased their protection. We objected to urban sprawl and opposed the absurd relocation of the wetland, which is the source of Ancaster Creek. We averted a sewage overflow pipe into Ancaster Creek. I've delegated at Planning Committee many times and organized large numbers of residents to come out to public meetings. I rallied scores of Ancaster residents and supporters from the city to save our heritage. We raised over $35,000 to take the developer at 15 Church Street to an Ontario Land Tribunal appeal and much more. My top 3 priorities, if elected, are affordability, deliver cost effectiveness in city operations and address Hamilton being the 3rd most expensive city in North America. 2, taxes. Fight against the city's planned 14% property tax increase over the next 3 years and maintain area rating. Heritage. Preserve heritage buildings, prevent overdevelopment, and deal with traffic congestion. I love Ancaster and Ward 12 and dearly want to serve residents and help sustain the quality of life. I'm here for you. If elected, I will hit the ground running. Thank you.
Candidate Mayton, thank you very much. And wrapping up our candidates in the studio here tonight. We have candidate Pamela Mitchell.
Hello. Hi, I'm Pamela Mitchell. I'm running for Ward 12 in Ancaster. I have lived in Ancaster since February 1st, 2020, and I love Ancaster. I come from Dundas. I grew up on Hamilton Mountain, and I love the nature in Ancaster. I want to preserve our waterfalls, our nature, that condos don't get built there. I don't want no LRT. It costs money for the taxpayers. Your grandchildren and children will be on the hook for that LRT. Better bus service. There's no bus service on Sunday. I've walked from Wilson down to Rosso with people that work at Fortino's and other places. That is despicable. That bus needs to be out there running till 10:30 at night. I want signs up there like Burlington, quiet zone for seniors. I want it posted that nighttime, no speeding cars. You know, if they want to speed, let them go to the racetrack and work it out there. But our roads need to be safer, better, and oh boy, do I have a problem with that light. Stopping the bus in the middle of traffic if you have to go to the washroom. You're sitting there for a half an hour. That new stoplight needs to go. I don't care who put it in. It needs to go. Homelessness. Seniors should never be homeless at 58 years old. Landlords need to go to jail and have a hefty fine of $50,000 for putting a senior out of their home that they pay rent. Homelessness is my top priority. No senior should be homeless anywhere.
Candidate
Thank you
Mitchell,
very much.
Thank you for everyone's introduction. We truly appreciate it. As we continue on, we will now be getting involved with our local media panel. We'll be bringing them in, and with us for this debate, he was here earlier from the Hamilton Spectator, Mr. John Wells. John, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Who to address this to with this room full of people? I'll address this to Cindy. So how can council address the traffic congestion that plagues Wilson Street and other parts of Ancaster that people see pretty much every day?
Well, I know that the City Council has put in place a report that can be done called the Complete Streets Report, and I believe that having that move forward and completed for our area will definitely give us some guidance and tools that we could use to work on changing the way our streets function. Our area has changed, and I believe that the way our roads function should also change.
Craig, I see you want to get involved.
Yes. Thank you. I've knocked on over 4,000 doors this summer, and to a person, everyone has an issue with traffic, both safety and the volume. So that what we have to look at here is this complex problem, and it ties into area rating. I know that subject's going to come up today. We can't get cars off the road unless we have public transportation. Pamela brought that up today. And even if we never build another unit in Ancaster, areas outside of Ancaster are growing. So there are going to be more cars. And we need to have a comprehensive bus service. With area rating, if we want to have better bus service, Ancaster would have to pay for all of that. What we need to do is have a plan that's comprehensive and citywide that is going to put in the blast network, which the LRT is the first line for, that will take traffic off of roads and also complemented with a cycling network. So public transportation is not used today very much in Ancaster, but it's something that we have to put effort into, and it's one of those complex problems that needs thinking and it needs collaboration with all councillors around the table.
Craig, thank you for that response. I see Pamela Mitchell would like to get involved.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. The bus service, it needs to change. That traffic light, I've been sitting on the bus, and God help anybody on that bus that has to go to the washroom. I'm 60 years old, and I do my best. But that light is too long on Wilson there. I don't care who put it in there. They should be fired. I don't care what the reason is. I don't care. It ties up traffic. I want to see traffic both ways on that street as soon as possible. Whoever gets in and gets that light out of there, if you're so inclined, put a light in there that turns red, yellow, green, that you push a button, and if you want to cross the street, be inclined. But that is just ridiculous. We need better bus service, and people need to get places and go places.
Thank you, Candidate Mitchell. We will move to Meg Marquetto, as you'd like to say a word on this.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with what Craig is saying, that we do need better transit here in Ancaster and the area. However, a lot of the problems with our congestion, particularly through Wilson, is not just Ancaster residents, but it's also the through traffic. And I drive home from Burlington every night. I come up 3 lanes of a highway and things move perfectly well until I hit the top, that junction of the Link and the 403, and it goes down to 2 lanes and we are bumper to bumper. I will fight to work alongside the provincial government to expand the 403 as soon as possible to 3 lanes out toward Brantford.
Thank you for that. Chuck Elkerton.
Okay, thank you. Actually, one of the things they have is Vision Zero. It's a Swedish study they've done. Maybe you've heard of it. And it's basically zero vision is, come year 2050, 0 fatalities. Now, part of this is traffic safety, traffic awareness for pedestrians, cyclists, people driving their cars, buses, etc. It also means educating everyone out there. It also means keeping everybody safe at the same time. The other thing is, in the morning, I know it's crazy, but the Highway 403 westbound ramp to Brantford, that will cut down 30% of the traffic going through Ancaster in the morning, and even at night. So, which would be great for Ancaster. It'll keep the traffic flowing as well.
I know there's a number of you that wanted to get involved with this. However, time is not allowing us to. We have to move on. Take your notes, and if you want to bring it up during the open forum, please do so. Cindy, though, you do get final word because the question was originally posed to you, if you wish.
Thank you. Like the other candidates have said, we all agree that traffic is an issue and there are solutions, and we need to work together on fixing the problem and doing it respectfully in a reasonable way with the city councillors on staff and I'm sorry, I lost my words.
That's okay, no worries. Again, candidates, if you do want to get involved, try to get your hand up a little sooner. I'm taking my list here, okay? From CHCH, Manisa Danabalish, you're back.
Thank you. My question is for Carl. So what do you think is the future of transportation? Should people prepare to start taking the bus or riding their bikes or driving their cars? What do you think is the most efficient way?
Great question. Thank you for that. And I think it feeds into the last topic that we just talked about with regards to the traffic congestion on Wilson Street. The last transportation study done in Ancaster dates back to 2011, and we need to do a full transit study of many of the candidates around here have mentioned. And part and parcel of any expanding city is taking all transit options into account: walking, cycling, buses, cars, everything working together. And without sort of an updated study as to how we can integrate everything together as the city continues to grow, that's our best way forward to look at that.
Candidate Kazar?
Yeah. So just to build on that, I've talked to a lot of people, like I said. To give an example, I talked to a woman who works at McMaster, and her family has to purchase a second car and pay for the insurance and the gas for what should be a 15-minute bus ride to McMaster. But that's not the reality today. So we really do need to look hard at transit and find ways to make it available for everybody. And for people who can't drive, young people, people with disabilities, we need to be an inclusive city, and public transportation goes a long way to do that. I've also talked to people who live off of Wilson on Central and Orchard and Valley View, and they can't even turn left onto Wilson from their streets. And again, we need public transit. If you take the number of people who could fit on a bus and put them in cars, you're taking up a bus is 90% reduction in space. So think of all the room that you're going to save if you have people on the bus instead of cars.
We really have to fly through some of these. Candidate Mayton.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Russo and Wilson is about the busiest intersection in the city. And I know I have a friend who stands on the corner there for the bus every day, and he sees people flying down the hill to the intersection and almost missing the light. It's a very dangerous intersection. We need to manage that intersection. We need to apply the Vision Zero concept to that intersection. We also have the issue of two massive developments that are going in on Wilson Street. There are going to be over 300 new units going in between Academy and Russo. And this is a real serious problem for the traffic. It's going to add traffic, tremendous amounts of it, going down Wilson Street to Russo, and we need to prevent these developments. I think it's really important.
Candidate Deverson.
Thank you. As I said, I'm very anti-LRT, but I'm also very pro-public transportation. And I think the HSR needs a rethinking. One of the things I see is very big buses, double-length buses, which are completely empty. You know, and I think if we were able to right-size our buses, put the biggest buses on routes with demand, and have smaller buses, perhaps holding 15 or 20 people, rather than the bigger buses, we could probably serve more people and get more people out of their vehicle. So those are some of my thoughts.
To candidates Mitchell, Marquetos, and Elkerton, sorry, I'm being told that we have to move on. However, candidate Hanley, you do get the final word as it was posed to you originally.
Thank you. Taking a look at transportation as Ancaster continues to grow and the surrounding area, we need to take a full look at all of the transportation in the Ancaster area and make sure that we're getting value for our taxes. We pay a lot of tax in the Ancaster area, and we need to look at the overall picture to make sure our residents and our community are getting good value for that. Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. And again, thank you to Manisa Danabalan from CH for that question. We now have questions coming in from our viewers. They've been tweeting us at Cable14 and emailing election@cable14.com. Come join the party. This one says, I am against e-funding the police. However, do you feel like some elements of the police budget, such as the mounted horse division, could be better spent to support housing or homeless solutions? I am seeing that this question is going to Bob Mayton.
I completely disagree with defunding the police. In fact, I think we need to increase the funding. We've had people down on Barton Street who've been in touch with all of the candidates, telling us about the drug trade and the violence which is going on down on Barton Street and down in the city core. And the police, I used to work on the coast team with St. Joseph's Hospital. With the police. And the police will not go individually down on Barton Street. This is a few years ago. It's a lot worse now than it was then. A few years ago, we did a walk down Barton Street to Mark with a number of other people, including the mothers of teenagers who had been killed on Barton Street. There were 9 of them. We marked 9 different places. We're really soft on crime. We're soft on the drug trade. We need to do something about that, and that means increasing the security for police, going in pairs, and upfunding the police. Thank you.
Candidate Hanley.
There's a number of issues and ways that we need to address homelessness, and we need to look at the budget for the city overall. There was a proposal by the last council to put forward $500,000 to hire new bylaw officers to address the homelessness issue and move people on. We need to stop that and redirect those funds into the bigger picture and addressing the homelessness and putting it into the community funds and organizations that are in the Hamilton City area to address the homelessness issue in a humane way, and to use the best value for our tax dollars in addressing the homelessness issue.
I have 4 more on my list. Hopefully we can get to them. Candidate Hume.
Yes, I would definitely be not in favor of defunding the police department. Our business had the towing trucks, and we were a contractor with Hamilton Police and security tows. I worked with a lot of the police officers during impoundments, and I seen what the police go through. We were on many jobs with them, and defunding the police would not be one of my options. I know housing issue, cost of housing, affordable living is a big issue on the table right now, but it needs to be looked at from a much broader angle. Thank you.
Candidate Kazar.
Chief Bergen has said that they should not be doing some of the work that they're doing now because it's beyond their mandate. We need to employ social workers, mental health professionals to take some of that work away from the police so the police can accomplish their mandate. So we need to fund the police. They're an important part of our community. And we also need to employ social workers and mental health workers to help the people who need it rather than having people with guns show up to help a situation.
Candidate Mitchell?
Yes, I would not defund the police. I believe that we need to have the police and special training to get our community safer. And I agree with them to go out and do whatever means it takes to stop people. I'm not ashamed of what I say. It's Canada, freedom of speech. And I congratulated the police for shooting that guy in the graveyard, stopping him. Thanks for the police doing a safe job for the community. That's getting the job done, and I'm not ashamed to say that. That's what we need to do to stop bad people like that. On the second hand, we need to separate Coast and the police department and have two divisions separately to deal with mental health issues.
Candidate Mitchell, thank you. Candidate Elkerton?
Yes, I would not defend the police at all as well. Homelessness, it's a serious issue, and it's getting worse, unfortunately. We have a fund from the feds and the province where the city receives $10 million. They've done a study, and it looks like we need about $100 million. So I think we need to lobby the provincial and federal government and city council to come up with some ways to get some more money to help these people in the downtown core.
Candidate Kay, you got your hand in a little late, so I'm sorry. We do have to move on. Final word, though, to Candidate Mayton, if he wishes.
Yes, thanks. I think we need to make a clear distinction between crime and homelessness. And the problems that lead to homelessness, mental health issues, and addictions are not the kinds of issues that the police easily deal with. And they need to be, I agree with the idea that there need to be social workers. And right now, with the homeless population, they have paramedics and social workers visiting them. It's a very fragmented system. It's not very focused. It's very ad hoc. And I think we need to have a comprehensive plan to deal with homelessness. But crime is a very different thing. And the violence that's associated with that's going on down on Barton Street, for example, needs to be stopped.
Candidate Mayton, thank you. Back from the Hamilton Spectator, Mr. John Wells.
Thanks, Mike. I'll direct this question to Robert. When it comes to new building construction in Ancaster, how high is too high in terms of the number of stories? And is this an issue of concern to you in terms of new development, new buildings in Ancaster?
Absolutely. Successful communities have their own strengths and weaknesses, but they all share common characteristics. So you need to involve like a broad section of our residents in determining the planning for the future. Right. So the main thing we have to be doing is capitalize on our distinctive assets, such as agriculture, historical landmarks, natural surroundings, homegrown business. So anything that's going to interfere with that is going to be a problem. I always say we live in an ever-changing world, and we certainly didn't leave the Stone Age because we ran out of rocks. But for Ancaster to grow successfully, we have to have that vision, inventory our assets, build on the enhancements of existing assets, use our educational incentives, pick and choose the development projects. So we don't want to say no to all the projects, but we want to have community input.
Candidate Baba, thank you. Moving on to Candidate Kazar.
The question was, how high is too high? I firmly believe we need to respect the Ancaster-Wilson Street secondary plan. And I think that's very possible because there are other tools and other ways to spread new residents and welcome new neighbors into our neighborhood. For example, the bylaw that Hamilton passed recently to allow the conversion of existing units into multiple family dwellings. It's not yet available in Ancaster because it's going through a stormwater assessment review, but that would be a great way for us to welcome new neighbors with no new construction and take the pressure off of development in downtown Wilson, which, as has been pointed out, is quite significant right now.
Candidate Hume.
Yes, I love to go down to Niagara-on-the-Lake. I love the atmosphere, the small village. I grew up in Dundas. I love downtown Dundas. It has its own unique style. And I also like Ancaster in the village. It's supposed to be, I believe, Ontario or Canada's third oldest village. It has a great history. So I would say that in unique areas, they should be preserved. You would not want to put Stinson Towers, for example, a big high-rise apartment, next to Prince of Wales in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Ancaster, the council should be able to set rules to preserve their village heritage.
Candidate Marquetos.
I agree. The heritage of our village is absolutely a unique aspect of Ancaster. We have one of the oldest municipalities in the entire province, and I think preserving that part of our community and maintaining the 3-story limit is really, really important. However, having said that, we have seen other communities go through tremendous high-rise growth when developers take everything to the OLT. It goes to the OLT. It is our tax dollars paying for the Ontario Land Tribunal to give them exactly what they want.
Candidate Marquetos, thank you very much. I'm sorry, but we do have to move on to Mitchell, Mayton, Elkerton, and Deverson. I'm sorry, but we have one final one. It will go to candidate Cindy Kay.
So the housing crisis is just that. It's a complex problem. We need to build 50,000 homes over the next 10 years in Hamilton. We need to be realistic with the way we approach this. Our population is growing. We need to be reasonable with our growth. I agree. Do we want to have 10 stories in Ancaster? No. Do we want to have 2.5? Yes. But can we go a little bit higher? Maybe. So we need to work together with developers, with our heritage, and incorporate into that village. Thank you.
Final word will go to you, Robert.
Yeah, thank you. So many communities have found ways to retain their small town values, historic character, scenic beauty, and sense of community, yet sustain a prosperous economy. I think that this is going to be a collaborative approach with the community and the developers before we start building high rises.
Appreciate that. She is back from CHCH, Manisa Dalabalan.
Thank you. My question is for Craig. What is your plan to improve the wastewater systems?
Improve the wastewater systems. Well, as I said in the last question, any development in Ancaster needs to have a stormwater assessment before any development can happen. But that's a pretty big topic, and that needs collaboration with staff. One issue that the previous councillor proposed was to dump sewage into Ancaster Creek, which is not how we should deal with that. I think there'd probably be general agreement around the table here. But it's a topic that will need consultation with staff, and it's something that, as councillor, dealing with infrastructure is a big topic, and we have a big deficit. So it's going to be among a whole range of things we're going to need to look at.
We are able, yes.
Thanks. This goes back to the overdevelopment that's happening on Wilson Street in Ancaster. The wastewater treatment plant is at the bottom of the hill there, which is a few hundred feet below Rousseau Street and Wilson. And the wastewater goes down there and gets pumped back up again to Rousseau and goes along Rousseau. So there's a huge amount of pressure on that wastewater treatment plant. Its capacity is almost at limit. As I've said before, we have over 300 units going in at the corner of Rousseau and Wilson, at the corner of Academy and Wilson. The wastewater treatment plant is not going to be able to deal with that. And the basements down in the valley have been flooding. In 2016, they were flooded. They're still trying to find out the source of much of that flooding. They've put in a lot of tanks to catch the runoff and the wastewater that was flooding their basements. We'll see if that works, but if they add any more development on Wilson Street, it could be a serious situation.
Candidate Elkerton.
Okay, also there's the ER zones. It's the original homes that were built. There's about 1,800 of them that have ditches. And if they try to intensify allowing 2-3 stories or even multi people in the homes, there's going to be traffic congestion. There's going to be problems with traffic parking, and also the storm, which is mentioned, storm management plan would have to be put in effect, which who knows how much that would cost. So I think that's very important.
Thank you. Candidate Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. I believe that they need to assess the whole thing, and we shouldn't be dumping sewage in our creeks. Have we not learned from Watergate? Have we not learned from that disaster? Water is our life source. And, building permits should have everything investigated from sewer to land, everything. And there should never be anything higher than 4, 5 tops. No more than that built on a piece of land, and it should sustain that piece of land. But our sewage needs to go, and it needs to be moved in a proper manner, that it's not flooding people's homes or apartments.
Thank you for that response. Craig, you will get last word.
Sure. The topic is wastewater, but I think the bigger risk is flooding from development. And particularly in the Airport Employment Growth District, there's a development proposed for 1 million square feet of warehouses on the Garner Marsh. And viewers may know that I did a short documentary on that, talking about why that's a terrible idea and taking you on a tour from those headwaters of Ancaster Creek down to Cootes Paradise. So wastewater is an issue, but the bigger issue is flooding and what that will do if we don't manage development and put it in the right spots and not on green areas.
That is going to wrap up this portion of our questions to our candidates. Again, a big thank you to John Wells and Manisa. We really do appreciate it. Our open forum, let's get it underway. Of course, we will give as many candidates as we can a minute to direct a question to one other candidate. That candidate will have a chance to respond, and then we will open up the floor for other brief comments. Please, candidates, get your hand up as quick as you can so I can kind of put you on my list. And of course, we might not get to everybody based on timing. We will do our best, though, if time requires. We drew numbers ahead of our broadcast to determine the order for this segment. Coming up first, Bob Mayton, your question and who you're directing it to, please.
To Chuck.
Yes.
Chuck, you were a member of Councillor Ferguson's advisory council for 12 years while he was turning a blind eye to the demolition of a large number of heritage buildings by developers in the Ancaster Village. 10 by my count. These developers were intent on replacing these demolished buildings with massive developments. You were also an employee of the city while advising the councillor. But the role of members of the advisory council is to represent ward residents and to give independent advice. Do you think you were compromised by your employment by the city? Why? And would you appoint a city employee to the advisory council if you were elected? And why?
Well, I certainly would. Well, I'll go back to your last question. Definitely, I'd have a city employee was qualified and to be part of the Ancaster Community Council. Definitely, why not? It's I was born and bred in Ancaster. I raised a family in Ancaster. I know all the Ancaster values. I was really interested in Ancaster. I was kind of known as Mr. Ancaster. I really enjoyed growing up in Ancaster and being part of the Ancaster Community Council. I know a lot of people in Ancaster. I knew the unique perspective of Ancaster through coaching, through hockey and all that kind of stuff. With regards to the demolitions that happened, the Brandon House, I was just petrified over that. It's a total shock. Got through the loopholes. The councillor got those loopholes tied up, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And went out and got a number of buildings in the Ancaster core designated heritage. I think there's over 40 or so in Ancaster, which was great. I have pride, historic pride in the village core and all the historic buildings as well.
Craig, you want to jump in on this discussion?
Yeah. The first thing I would say around development is to my knowledge, the only candidate that has declared they're not taking any donation from developers for the campaign because I believe it's a conflict of interest. The idea of an advisory council is a very good idea, and the community needs to be involved. I've been listening all summer to residents, and that's what I'm going to continue to be doing. But we also need to negotiate, and I talked about my skills from my leadership career at Maple Leaf Foods, and we need to negotiate with builders, and we haven't done a really good job of that so far. I talked with the builder subsequent to their appeal to the OLT, and we actually came up with some ideas that they may have been willing to concede on if they had someone operating in good faith at the table. So that's something that I'll bring to the role as councillor.
Candidate Mitchell?
Yes, I believe that the community should be involved, and the heritage building should not be demolished to put up condos or any other thing like that. It should be meetings with the community to advise them what's happening in Ancaster, and it's important that City Council work with the community. That's who votes the people in, is the community. They vote for that councillor and they expect the councillor to do their job and to get the best for that community.
Thank you. Very well said. Candidate Mayton?
Craig, we've met with the developers on Wilson Street numerous times, and I don't think your negotiation skills would make a blind bit of difference, really. We were bamboozled by the developer at Russo and Wilson. He changed his mind numerous times about the number of stories that he was going to have in his building. He started off with 8 and 7, 8 for an Amica building and 7 for a condo. He went down to 4 and 3, and then he came back at City Council with 7, and that's where we are right now. And we've been negotiating with him all the way through. Same with the developer at Academy and Wilson, just the same story.
Again, I'm being told we have to move on. I'm very sorry. I know everybody wants to get in. We're doing lightning round here with so many people. Thank you for understanding. If you'd like to try to get the question a little bit later, put it on your notepads there. Richard Deverson, your question, who you're directing it to, please.
Thank you very much. My competitive difference is I am very anti-LRT. And I know Pam said she's also anti-LRT, whereas I think Craig said he was pro-LRT. Rather than asking any particular person, could I have a poll of people?
You have to ask a particular candidate, and then we can move around.
How about Bob?
The LRT?
Yes.
I'm against the LRT. I don't think it's a very good idea at all. I totally agree with you, Richard. Buses are much more flexible. If eventually we end up with electric buses, and they improve the efficiency of electric buses, I think we would be much better off with electric buses than the LRT.
Candidate Mitchell?
Yes, I'm not for the LRT. I'm for more buses. And people have a right to drive their cars. I used to live in Toronto with my parents back in the 70s. And I loved the subway. I loved to ride that. And I thought it was great, the buses. But people are still driving down the highway with their cars, the roads. And for someone to put blinders on like a horse, how horses have blinders on, is incompetent in my mind to say that cars get them off the road. People are not going to give up their cars, nor do they have to. We need more buses out there, and we need them peak times, the buses, the accordion buses.
Thank you very much for that response. Candidate Elkerton.
Yeah, okay, I'm definitely for the LRT. It's a positive moving forward. New infrastructure along the route and utilities below the road eventually is going to have to be done. They're past their life cycle. We're going to save millions through them doing the work underground. It would be environmentally sustainable, minimizing air pollution, energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions. New tax revenues from along that 14-kilometer route of 2 or 3 story condos, be taxes coming in, which in the end would be tax revenue, cheaper taxes for the citizens in Hamilton.
Candidate Kasser?
Yes, so the debate on buses or LRT is done, so there's no point really talking about that. Any councillor needs to get behind the LRT and make it work. As Chuck pointed out, it is going to bring density and more tax revenue, which is good for everybody. And it's also the first line on the Blast network, which is important because there are going to be terminus points in the Ancaster Business Park, which we desperately need, and in the Meadowlands. So this is the first step in building that comprehensive transit network that we need all through Hamilton and in Ancaster.
Robert Babbitt, did I see you want to get involved? Or?
No, I just...
No, okay.
No, as long no, I want to make sure though the LRT is run by the HSR.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm being told we have to move on. Candidate Cindy Kay, your question and who you're directing it to, please.
My question is to Mr. Kazar. Back in 2021, in the height of the pandemic, when many were struggling, some with family members dying alone in hospitals, the Stop Sprawl Hamilton group put political pressure on the City Council to overturn the recommendation of professional city staff that recommended reasonable expansion. During my canvassing, many residents expressed that they were misled by the survey. Mr. Kazar, do you think you're hypocritical as you live in your single detached home and enjoy the space and property?
People can only purchase the homes that are available, and up until this point, all that's available in Ancaster and much of Hamilton is single-family housing. We're in a climate crisis, and we need to take action on that. As councillor, I will continue to support freezing the urban boundary. It also preserves farmland as well as reducing emissions. But even if you don't care about those two things, sprawl costs money. if we sprawl, we have to build infrastructure. It will cost between $400 and $500 per person per year, per household per year on their taxes. Whereas if we're building density within the urban boundary, there's a surplus of $600. So sprawl doesn't make any sense from any angle whatsoever.
Response?
Well, you mentioned spending money, and there's already pipes that are laid in the ground to go to some of these areas. How are you going to justify that to taxpayers?
Well, I'm not aware of any infrastructure that has been built because it wasn't approved. So if infrastructure was built, it shouldn't have been.
Candidate Humes?
Yes, it was just mentioned a few minutes ago that the wastewater system is at capacity. I'm not against building homes or expanding, but I agree with you, urban sprawl is not the answer. We had this debate on the Flamborough Council. We just kept growing out and out and out. Now we got traffic situations, we had school situations, we added a whole bunch of surveys, and then the road capacity couldn't take it. The schools couldn't handle the students. Students grew up in portable housing in a parking lot. It was a disaster. Housing is good, but you do it in pace with all your services and infrastructure, or it will haunt you.
Thank you very much. Candidate Elkerton, last word.
Yeah, with regards to the pipes in the ground, Elfrida, back in 1970, they put the infrastructure in, they put the bigger pipes in for expansion. So there is some areas in Hamilton area. I'm not for urban sprawl, but Elfrida is one of those areas that there's 1,100 acres that is ready for expansion if they ever decide to do that. I'm against it, but just as an information.
Thank you all for the responses to that. Pamela Mitchell, you are up next. Your question, who you're directing it to, please.
Yes, Cindy, please. I would like to ask your vision on building homes for seniors so that it's secure, safe. What do you deem that as the importance to stop from seniors being homeless from 58 and over, and bad landlords that don't do anything about bad tenants? Like, for instance, my building have mentally ill people and they have no business putting them in a building. I'm sorry, I'm not discriminatory, but there's lodging homes out there for such people with mental health issues to be looked after 24/7.
Thank you for that question. Candidate Kay?
Yes, thanks for the question, Pam. And it's really sad when our seniors are not looked after, and not to have a spot for them to be secure and safe is wrong. And we as a community need to help and find solutions for homelessness, for homeless seniors, and for families. And if that starts with a tiny home project, and that bridges them to a shelter, and then from a shelter that bridges them to a home, we need to work together on that.
Candidate Kassar?
I'll mention that I am the Ward 12 candidate that's been endorsed by Hamilton Acorn, whose mandate is to help those who are not as socioeconomically well off, and to help with housing and affordable housing. So it is a very significant issue. We need to provide more housing for all people, including seniors, especially as our population is aging. So that's where things like secondary dwelling units and converting homes into multiple units helps, because different generations of families can live together, and it provides more housing without creating more development.
Room for two more candidates. I already have them down here. Candidate Elkerton.
Yeah, okay, there's, with regards to that, for the seniors, there is education for them to let them know that there is grants available that they can apply for. And there's, I forget how many, it was like $2 million, 700 families could have applied for this money, but they didn't apply. So I think we have to get the education aspect out there for the seniors, that there is available money out there.
Candidate Marquetos.
Coming from the retirement sector, housing for seniors, I think, is a huge issue, and we need to make sure that it is accessible to all. I like seeing what some European countries are doing today, where, for example, they have a retirement residence that houses university students in the same property. And the university students can live there for free, and they do the jobs that are necessary in that property. So cooking the meals, offering companionship, personal support work services. They live there for free while they're pursuing their education, and seniors have the intergenerational experience with the students.
Thank you for that. Next question will be coming from Chuck Elterton.
Okay, question for you, Craig. On your flyer, you state no more sewer gates. What would you have done differently regarding sewer gate confidentiality?
The public has a right to know what's happening in our city. There was many times that council voted not to share what happened. And I, for one, with my family, we were kayaking in Coots Paradise when that water was contaminated. It's a health risk. So integrity and accountability are something that I will always choose, because we need to represent our citizens, our constituents, and not be tied up by what we think is right or wrong in sharing things legally. We need to be accountable. We need to be transparent.
Candidate Mayton.
Yeah, I hear this suggestion that City Council is divided and polarized, and there's lots of conflict. I've been involved in a lot of planning committee meetings, and I've seen a lot of City Council meetings. I don't see that. What I see is collaboration to do things like hide the Red Hill Creek Expressway fiasco and the Shadow Creek fiasco, and there may be others, who knows. But the thing is that the City Council needs to change its culture. I agree with you, Craig. What they need to do is be transparent. They need to let things out when they occur, and they need to deal with them very promptly. This situation with the Shadow Creek has just been terrible. It's been awful. And it is a health risk. It's a serious health risk and needs to be dealt with in a very different way in the future.
Candidate Babbith?
Yeah, I think we need to look at how we can improve transparency. And I think one way is improving the record management system, even for those records that don't require an FOIA request. Like, make getting information such as court documents, land deeds, and vital information just a few clicks away. It's very difficult sometimes for people to get information, and we just want to make that easy for them. We can digitize the process to make it easier rather than citizens having to go to City Hall. I mean, where it can be difficult, cities can just go online and access the information, and I think we have to review our in-camera protocols. We need to be taking advice from our lawyers, but we need to be clearly articulate the rationale why sessions were chosen to be in camera.
Chuck?
Okay, actually back to council confidentiality. Actually, when you become a councillor, that's one of the oaths you take is confidentiality. It's a Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which you have to abide by. In 2015, the city hired an integrity commissioner, making municipal government more transparent and accountable, and that was the reason why. And listening to legal, that's why council had to keep quiet to make sure they had all the facts before they let any information out. So I just want to let you know that that's why there's an integrity commissioner for that job.
Thank you for all those responses. Our next candidate with the question, Candidate Meg Marquetos. Your question, who it's going to, please.
It is going to my neighbor, Bob.
Okay.
My question for you, Bob, I don't know whether to look at you or this way.
Wherever you like.
My question for Bob is, during the pandemic, you were quite public about not agreeing with vaccine mandates. The city, to this date, still requires that new city employees have proof of vaccination. Should you be elected, I ask you how you are prepared to serve the people of Ward 12 if you are not allowed in City Hall or to be a city employee.
Well, first of all, Elizabeth Richardson, our public health director, has been saying for quite some time that the vaccines don't prevent transmission and don't prevent infection. And she based her case for them on the mitigation of seriousness of the symptoms. But that actually, according to the data, and I followed this very closely, because, as you've suggested, the data don't support that either. There is no real support for vaccinations as they are because of immune escape. The COVID virus has mutated and gone well beyond the vaccines, and the vaccines no longer cover that particular virus. So I think we need to be very careful about the science that we follow, and I'm glad that Elizabeth Richardson took that position, and I congratulate her for that.
Candidate Kazar?
We do need to be careful about the science we follow, and we need to listen to the experts. Vaccines are proven to prevent transmission and to keep people healthier if they do get infected. So 90% of people or something like that in Hamilton do have a vaccine. So we need to listen to public health. We need to listen to the majority of people who are sensible and have vaccines and make sure we're protecting each other.
Candidate Hume?
Yes, this subject has come up a lot, especially from small business and who should be open, who should be closed. But I am a strong believer that getting the vaccine has sent the wrong message out to the public. I've seen people get vaccinated and right away they think they're bulletproof, that they won't get it, and they go out into the public with no guideline. The vaccine helps you if you contact COVID, but it will not stop you from getting it. It reduces the symptoms if you get it, but it should be the person's choice whether they get vaccinated or not, because a vaccine, in my opinion, does not prevent you to go out and not get it.
Candidate Marquetos?
I would just like to come back to the question at hand, which is not whether we agree with vaccine mandates or not. The city does still, and on September 30th, that may change, but on October 24th, if that vaccine mandate is still in place, how do you, Mr. Mayton, prepare to serve the people of Ward 12?
Well, if I'm elected, I'm going to vote against the vaccine mandate unless there's a serious case for the vaccinations. And I'd like to hear what the public health director is going to be saying at that point. City council has voted against the mandates. They voted against it, what is it, 6 weeks ago now? So the mandates are no longer in existence. They may expire on September the 30th, but council is in pretty much full agreement that the mandates are not useful, and they've ended them.
Last candidate, Candidate Babbitt.
Yes, the Scarson report, which is a software development company, is forecasting it's upped its estimate of COVID hospitalizations expected this fall, and then there's a lower uptake of vaccines in Hamilton, has prompted an increase in the number of residents predicted to be hospitalized with COVID this fall. My concern is it continues to put a strain on our healthcare system, and I think we have to be very careful about, when we make these comments, and we have to make sure on top of that our business has a business continuity plan in case that happens.
Robert, thank you for that, and we will allow you to continue with the microphone. You have your question and the candidate you'd like to send it to, please.
Thanks, Mike. This is for candidate Bill. Welcome back. Right? So one of your comments was to defend the needs of country dwellers. So what are the top issues right now facing your constituents, the rural residents, that aren't being addressed today?
I would say the number one topic that comes up is taxes. They want affordability on their taxes for what services they get. They want the preservation of farmland. They recognize that the farmland is very, very important. They feel it's being ignored. The bottom line is we all want to eat. Who's feeding us? Again, I'm going back to this editorial that I brought with me. Mr. Trudeau, it looks like, for Canada, is setting immigration at 475,000. That's going to cause an awful lot of housing needs. But housing is one word. Housing drives traffic, drives infrastructure, drives schools, drives family doctors, dentists, and so on and so on. Part of this meeting tonight is deja vu to me. We went through it in Waterdown. Waterdown grew. We got 4 lanes of highway coming into Waterdown. We got 2 lanes downtown and 4 lanes at Clavesons. It's a bottleneck of traffic. You don't take a 4-inch pipe and put a 2-inch joiner and expect it to work. That's a prime example of what the city has gone through in the past. And unfortunately, I see a lot of it being repeated in Ancaster, and it'll repeat in the Dundas area with the housing around Highland. Housing does not pay if it's not done properly.
Candidate Kazar?
Thank you. The rural parts of our ward are very important. So much so that on my core team, I have a resident from Carluke who lives in the rural area. The issues that I've heard about are preserving farmland, which is very important. Also, the permit process. I know there are businesses out there on farmland who are trying to grow, and they've told me stories of how difficult it is, how long it takes, how many hoops they have to jump through. We need to make the process for going through permits simpler. In the 2022, it can't be as complicated as it is today. But they also talk about speeding on the road. Their roads aren't safe as well. So I'm listening, and I've been canvassing in rural areas, and I will continue to do that.
Candidate Elkerton.
Yeah, actually, Craig, I agree. I was as well in the rural area talking to many of the farmers. The permit process has to be a lot easier. They're saying Brantford's a lot quicker and easier when they had farms out there. Also, taxes. The preservation of the farmland. That's very important as well, and keep the urban sprawl the way it is.
Candidate Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. We need to keep our farms safe. We need to invest more in our foods. We need to give farmers a break. We need to give them less of a tax break to grow their food, to supply their food for all Canadians and for their communities. We need to support that, and we need to stop real estate agents from grabbing their farmland to build condos and whatever else. We need to have understanding that it's very important. We cannot let those safety nets go. We have to have them sustained for people.
Thank you for that. Candidate Hume, last word.
Just to touch base there, you mentioned Brant County was a lot easier to get permits if you're a farmer. I agree, but this is a review of one tier. Before, when we had the Flamborough and the Ancaster and the Dundas, you had all them planning departments that were small, hands-on, and the people could go to. Now the farmer is coming down to downtown Hamilton building department. And that building department is busy with the condos, the development, the LRTs, the downtown, the services. So, yes, he cannot get as good a service because you can't put everything jammed into one big government and expect efficiency. We're seeing that now.
Hume, thank you. I know other people want to get involved. However, I'm being told we got to move on so we can get the other questions in. I really, truly do apologize. Candidate William Hume, though, you still have the microphone. Your question and who you're directing it to, please.
My question was on transit. I hear a lot of support for LRT. I have mixed emotions on LRT simply from my gas station business. In the morning, we were very busy. Traffic had a pattern. It was going east, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was coming west. But I took a point of asking the people buying gas, where were they headed? They're headed to work. Well, where's work? Work was Mississauga, Vaughan, Toronto, everything but local. Mm-hmm. LRT is a local animal. Mm-hmm. When in the 70s, my parents, we had the big tow trucks. We were in Stelco. We worked for Capito and lots of transport companies hauling into Stelco.
Candidate Hume, your question, please.
There was 23,000 employees on the buses going into Stelco back then. HRSR was packed. If we're having all this housing growth, the question is, where are they going to work?
To who? Who are you directing that to, sir?
And I forget your
name.
Craig. Yeah, well, it's a very good point. We do have a lot of people who travel outside Hamilton. That's why we need to do a great job of marking our city, building density that will attract businesses here so we can have good jobs here. I mentioned the climate crisis earlier. We have a real opportunity to create green jobs, retrofitting our buildings, building new green buildings. So we need to generate our economy here, grow our economy, and generate jobs here.
Candidate Hanley? Yes, Carl. Yes.
Thank you. Your question was about where are we going to find the jobs. There's a lot of growth around our airport district. There's a lot of new businesses coming in that area with more to come. Along the LRT line itself, There's a lot of investment and expansion and proposed expansion of 2- and 3-story buildings, businesses, shops, and more people coming into the area. So there is a lot of work coming in terms of businesses expansion, airport expansion, expansion at the port. We're the busiest hub in North America for our port here in Canada and our airport in Canada as well. There's a lot of opportunity, and we need to nurture that and encourage businesses into the area.
Candidate Mitchell?
Yes, thank you. We need to have programs out there. The bus advertise, we need bus drivers. That should be all seasons. Whether they're hiring or not, they should have that as an incentive. And we need to get out there and supply jobs to students, to people that need them. Seniors still work. I noticed in the news that seniors working at McDonald's, they should be retired, but they can't retire because the cost of everything, climate change, everything is in play. But the thing is, whether there's one person or 100 on a bus, they still need that bus. It still needs to run. We need darts. Darts needs to be structured better. They have the same day line in darts. Whoever is the idiot behind that is a joker. A joker. You need to call it like a cab and book it. Get your ride, get your destination to your doctor's appointment, to your hairdresser, to your job, to wherever.
Candidate Mitchell, thank you very much for that response. We do have to continue on here. Candidate Deverson?
Yes, I was just going to say that I think you made an excellent point that Hamilton's transportation problems are not north and south from Stony Creek to McMaster, but rather east and west along the Kiwi-W from Toronto. And that's where the government's transportation dollars should be spent. Maybe extending the TTC line from Kipling further south and west. That would be an immediate success. I'll tell you, the LRT, it'll be empty.
Thank you. Candidate Marquetos?
Yes, I think this comes back to, talking about the future of transportation as well as business. And it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. If we do not have the transportation, Hamilton does not look as appealing as a place to open new business. Businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. Without business, we have no purpose. And so I think that by having the LRT and improved transit throughout the community, it makes Hamilton a more attractive place for businesses to set up shop.
Candidate Mayton, your hand was up first. You get last word.
Thank you. We're turning into a bedroom community in Ancaster. We're building lots of units and lots of houses, lots of dwelling places. And there's been very little thought given to the economy, especially in the village. What I would suggest, we have a lot of natural assets, and we also have the Arts Center. We have our heritage, we have our history. We've got buildings that date from the late 1700s, early 1800s. We've got waterfalls. We've got natural landscapes. The farms on Highway 52 want to develop their farms as places for tourists to go and visit, whether they're from local areas or whether they're from out of town. But to go and see how a cow is milked and how apples are picked, and to have an experience. And I think that needs to happen all over Ancaster.
Candidate Mayton, thank you very much. We do have to move on. Our next question will be coming from Carl Hanley.
Thank you. There's a lot of talk knocking at the doors and talking to people between old Ancaster and new Ancaster over in the Meadowlands side. Building bridges and bringing the community together is something that we need to work towards. Robert, how would you build those bridges and bring the communities of Meadowlands and Old Ancaster together?
Well, both communities have both, their strengths and their weaknesses. I would be taking a look at there's going to be a collaborative approach and a cooperation between the two, because people say exactly what you say is, here's Old Ancaster, no development there, but in the Meadowlands they should have some development. So I would be looking at setting up almost a town hall style, Carl, to bring the people together to find out what the concerns are. Let's find out what the concerns are. Let's build that bridge, and let's see if we can get the communities joined.
Anybody else like to discuss this topic? Candidate Mitchell and then Alkerton.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I live in Ancaster and I take the city HSR bus to Meadowlands, and we need better bus service. We need it out there, getting people to places. There's restaurants out there that I go to on occasion. I can't always afford each month, but I go a couple of times. After a couple of times a month, I notice, that there's not a lot of business in those places. We need to get buses out there. We need to get people interested in advertising that, both the old and the new Ancaster. And, we need to advertise and get people interested in going out there.
Thank you for that response. I'm sorry,
Thank
but
you.
we do have to move on. Candidate Elkerton?
Okay, I think we have a lot of, part of the Ancaster Community Council again is with regards to special events. With the Ancaster Fall Fair, one of the biggest fall fairs in Ontario, right in our backyard. Ancaster tree lighting, Ancaster Heritage Days, clean up the pickup, Christmas tree lighting, Remembrance Day ceremonies. So we do communicate out there. We talk about it. It's in the Ancaster News. It's in the Hamilton Spectator. So I think I don't consider old Ancaster, new Ancaster. I consider us all together as one team. We play sports. There's men's baseball, ladies three pitch. Everybody's involved, from the Meadowlands and from old Ancaster.
Candidate Elkerton, thank you very much. Candidate Kazar, I know that you wanted to get in on this. However, our team is saying we should get to our next question, and you are the last question of the night, so
Okay.
we'll give it to you.
Over the last year and more, I've immersed myself in a lot of topics that a councillor will have to deal with, because there's a broad range of things. It is an executive role. Topics like city building, public transit that we've talked about tonight, land use planning, environment topics like climate change and biodiversity, reconciliation with Indigenous communities, and equity topics like affordable housing and accessibility. So Chuck, I'd like to ask you what you've done on these topics to broaden your learning and how you will continue to learn to be knowledgeable on all of these broad range of topics.
Well, I think the thing is, when it comes to housing in Ancaster, it's gone up, and it's gone up as we know how the housing market's gone up. The taxes have remained low, but it's pretty hard for I know my kids to buy a place in Ancaster. It's next to impossible. It's just too much of a down payment for it. So we have to work with council, have to even work with the central banks, maybe even get the interest rates down lower. Like, that's a big topic, and it should go that way. So that's my answer there, Craig. It's just to continue best we can and lobby the government as well.
Greg, I know you'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, there's been a fair amount of consensus on topics here, so it really comes down to a character of the leader who's going to be councillor. So my question was about how you're going to continue to learn and become a better councillor. I didn't hear that in your answer.
Okay, well, actually, Craig, being municipal government for 36 years, I've worked with council, I've worked with the mayor's office, senior staff, been involved in another number of decisions. Ancaster Community Council, we had a lot of developers come in and propose what they wanted to do. We gave our strategic thinking for forward thinking how we're going to end this. So that's
Candidate Mitchell?
Yes, thank you. I live in Ancaster, and I live in affordable housing, geared to income. I can't afford to buy a home. I can't afford to pay full rent and hydro and all the utilities. Unless I win a max lottery, which is, well, 1 in a million maybe. I don't have any relatives that are going to give me a lump sum of money, and nobody's going to hand me a lump sum of money to go buy a home. I'm 60 years old, and let's be real. Let's be real. How many governments, okay? Let's not be stupid here. How many governments, how many city council? We all know the homeless issue. We all know it. We don't need to beat ourselves in the head. And the thing is, we need affordable housing, not more condos, not more homes built. When are we going to get more affordable homes?
Candidate Mayton, to the original question.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Greg. My learning curve has been nearly vertical for the past 3 years. It's been quite an experience. And I think what we need to do is engage with the residents of Ancaster more. There hasn't been, apart from the public meetings for planning committee and developments and that kind of thing. But transit is a great issue that we could have a town hall about. and get ideas. One of the first things that I did when I formed the Ancaster Village Heritage Community was to have a meeting with all of the residents in our neighborhood to talk about what we could do about traffic. Traffic was the big issue. Cut-through traffic between Russo and Wilson. And we had, out of the 60 houses, 70 houses in that area, we had representation from nearly all of them. And people had a lot to say. And I think we need to listen to what they have to say.
Candidate Hume, I'm sorry, but we cannot get to you. I'm being told that our hour and a half is wrapping up. And of course, to all of you, thank you very much. I know this was kind of lightning round. Unfortunately, we got to move on. But once again, our candidates are Chuck Elkerton, Robert Babbitt, Craig Kazar, Richard Deverson, Carl Hanley, William Hume, Cindy Kay, Meg Marquetos, Bob Mayton, and Pamela Mitchell. Look, so much was said, so many different thoughts. Go to their websites, check out their platform. This was just a snippet so you guys can get educated on what our candidates stand for. This concludes our Ward 12 debate. Remember, it's Our Hamilton. Our vote and election day is October 24th. You can find everything you need to know, including a list of all of the candidates running for City Council, as well as the public and Catholic school boards on the City of Hamilton website at hamilton.ca/elections. Please get out to vote, whether in person or by mail-in ballot, and join us that evening for all your local election results. Don't forget, you can find the schedule for all of our upcoming election debates on our website at cable14.com/elections, and we especially invite you to join us next Tuesday, September 27th at 7 as our debate concludes with the live mayoral debate. I'm Mike Fortune in Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Alcoholics Anonymous. For more information, visit aa.org